Hey everyone, guess what? We do not have ugly swag. We have spaced out radio gear that you're going to want to wear. Why? Because no one wants to wear ugly clothing. So head on over to spacedoutradio.com and go shopping today. You'll be glad you did. And it's a great way to support our show. Once you get your gear, send us a picture of you rocking out in your SOR swag. spacedoutradio.com, shop there today, and make yourself look good.
Welcome, everybody, to Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours radio show with me, your host, Mr. Rob G. Guess what, guys? I say it all the time, but tonight's going to be a great show. We have Cate Chassé joining us, talking UFOs, the phenomena, all sorts of things here tonight. Make sure you don't miss that hours 1 and 2. Also, we'll have Steve Stockton tells Untold Missing Person Mysteries, plus some UFO and weird news of the week. Let me see who has come in here tonight first. Courtesy of Race Fan, looks like we got Kitty Catty Whack, who's on a streak here with the gold. We have Race Fan with the silver, and then we have Mel WD40 getting us lubed up for the show and also coming in with the bronze, which is super awesome. Let me go ahead and welcome everyone else that we can before we start this show here. We never get to everyone, right? Usually between now and the first break here. We got Roger Murray dropping knowledge on us. August 21st, 1955 to 2025, 70th anniversary Kentucky Goblin incident, family attack. That's the Hopkinsville, Kentucky Goblin, and maybe we'll talk about that later. I think we will. Appreciate you keeping us informed, Roger Murray. Let me mark that down. Also, let's see, who else has come on in? We have ST saying good evening. Appreciate you coming in. The Jaquetta coming in as well. Hello, friends. Happy birthday, Flat 6. Happy birthday, Flat 6. Happy birthday. Well, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Flat 6. Happy birthday to you. From your boy, Mr. Raji. Appreciate you, man. Be safe out there as well. We got, who else is in here? Looking through the chat here. Tamothman, I see Tamothman out there. Hey, Tamothman. Obviously, the birthday boy Flat 6 is here for sure. We got Mel WD40 getting the super chat started and wishing happy birthday to Flat 6. Thanks for your support of Spaced Out Radio here tonight. Night Drive, I watch Baywatch. I see you out there. Thanks for coming on in. Let's see. Moving down the list, Earl Orbs. Thanks for coming on in. Seems like a new name. Appreciate you showing up to the show tonight. Moving down the list, let's see. Frankie B. Hey, Frankie B. Thanks for coming on in as well. Thomas Rock, I see you out there. Thanks for coming in. Moving further down the list. And I think, yeah, we still have a few more, but we got to get the radio side, the podcast side started real quick. So let me do that. Welcome to Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours radio show with me, your host, Mr. Rob G. Tonight's going to be a fantastic show. We have Cate Chassé joining us here, UFO researcher, and we'll be talking UFOs, unidentified aerial phenomena, or UAPs for those who call them that. And we'll talk about the ET presence and more for hours 1 and 2. Also, Steve Stockton tells Untold, Mr. Person Mysteries for hour 3. Guys, let's get the show started. Greetings, space travelers. Welcome home. You just tuned your dial to Spaced Out Radio, the only place where you can own the night. I am your host, Mr. Rob G. And tonight, we're broadcasting on our terrestrial affiliates across North America, plus digitally on digital platforms all around the world. Don't forget, you can access our archives. They're absolutely free. YouTube.com/at Spaced Out Radio. And while you're there, please consider hitting that subscribe button. Also, don't forget to follow us on X and Instagram at Spaced Out Radio, that Spaced Out Radio Show. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where the options are endless. You can stay up to date with the SR Newswire. You can get yourself some official Spaced Out swag. Plus, you can rock out to the man you hear right there, Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal, and so much more. Great show tonight. We have Cate Chassé joining us, UFO researcher, experiencer, talking to phenomena for hours 1 and 2. And you know how we do it here on the show. After hours, we get right on into the conversation. So let's not waste any time and bring to the stage Cate Chassé. Hello, Cate. How are you?
Hello, I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
So glad to have you here tonight, talking UFOs, moving the needle, which we will be doing tonight. So, it's always like this. We set the groundwork for future shows and future conversations that I know we're going to have. So let's start out with, what got you into this? Did you have any experiences young? And what directed you into the seat you're in today?
Yeah, I guess my first experience got me into this, which I was 6 years old when it happened. And, I think from that point on, and that wasn't even a UFO experience. That was more of consciousness experience. But that kind of led me down the road into the paranormal and, you know, just nothing, not your sort of mainstream stuff. So like at 13, 14, I started reading about, like I was reading Edgar Casey and anything to do with paranormal. So, things about seances or, ghosts to uh, everything. Aliens were in there. And from an early age, also, I was like totally into science fiction. So Star Wars, Star Trek. I mean, I wasn't selective either. It's like I'm both a Trekkie and a Star
Mm-hmm.
Wars person. Um, and I read science fiction, read my first fiction book when I was 13. That was Dune, which is now a movie. And that actually, Dune had a like profound effect on my life. Um, and then I guess over the years, I had different paranormal experiences, and then I had my first sighting, and that I think that was in 92. So I was about, I think I was 29 years old at that time, and that really, well, I mean, that blew my mind, right? It blew my world. Um, After that, I started having dreams and the obsession started, which I'm sure many people have heard about that obsession. If you've seen something, you become obsessed. And so I was obsessed for about probably 6 years after that. And then I actually had to put it aside. I just, it was like to the point where it was like, you know what, I need to get on with my life. And so that's when I went back to school. I had maybe a year of university under my belt, so I went back in my 30s to finish that off and then did my master's. Got my master's at at 41, I think it was. So that time period that I was studying, and then I got a job, so that kept me busy. So for 20 years, maybe not quite 20 years, 10 years, I really wasn't involved in ufology at all. And I think it was January 2018. I was at a party, and someone mentioned about the WikiLeaks with with Tom DeLonge talking to oh, I forget the guy's name from the government, and all of that stuff came out, and then the TTSA stuff, and then the New York Times article, and so that kind of threw me right back into it. But I was kind of like, I hadn't read about it much. I mean, I had been dabbling here and there, but not really, right? Like I really had put it aside. And so um, I started getting back into reading about it, buying books, got onto Twitter, or UFO Twitter, because I was on Twitter before, but got onto the UFO Twitter somehow. I don't even know how I got there, but just found it. And that sort of started leading me down different directions. So, I started, following different people, and I came across Richard Dolan and joined his website because after listening to many of his podcasts, I just loved how he thought about the phenomenon, and how he wrote about it. And he was open-minded but scientific about it, which kind of, I guess I kind of call myself like a sort of a hybrid between the woo and the consciousness stuff and the nuts and bolts, because I've had both. So from the Richard Dolan, following his X feed and his YouTube stuff, I got onto his website and started listening to all of his podcasts. Like went back into the old stuff, and so did that for months and months. And then one day, there was an ad for the Experiencer group, some, I guess, on his website, and that's a group that was started by J. Christopher King and Stuart Davis and oh, I forget the other lady's name. She's a friend of mine, but I'm blanking. And so getting into, like, I think I was like the 8th person to sign up for that. And that really got me into talking about my experiences, because there's some stuff that I actually never spoke about to anybody, because I had no one I could talk to. No one, some of the stuff was just too wild that, and I had the experience before talking to people and being ridiculed and so on. And so that experiencer group really opened up things for me. And from the experiencer group, I heard about a conference that Richard Dolan was putting on in this platform called the Observation Deck, which was owned by Ron Janix of Contact in the Desert, another guy named Jordan Pease. And so I started volunteering for them, and helping out. And Pursuing X was also working on that platform. So got to be friends with all of them. And sort of that led me to helping out at Contact in the Desert, and meeting other people like Michael Ney from Beyond Being Human, and working with him. And I just like, when I say working, I just help them out in different ways. I don't like, I'm retired now, so I don't ask for pay or anything. I just like to help out and just be a part of it. It's really about being a part of it and who you get to meet and so on. That's
Yeah,
how got me into it.
that's awesome. That's awesome. And your story sounds a lot like mine's. Coming in, not being a lifelong person, coming in within the last, since 2017 is where people like to draw the line. And it sounds like you did like what I did, which was kind of jumped in and absorbed everything that you could. And it was a wild ride, I'll say, in the beginning for myself, because I went into like a theoretical time machine. I immediately went back to the beginning, and that means, I'm seeing Richard Dolan, who you speak about, and I would love to get on the show at some point. As a young man, and Nick Pope and all these guys, and then kind of moving on all the way up until today, it was like one of those downloads people talk about in absorbing a lot of information initially. So I know exactly what you went through coming into the field. And that's kind of why, a lot of people draw the line and say, hey, these are new people into the field. But I think I can go probably head up with someone that's been in this for a while as far as knowledge goes. But with that being said, you talked about at 6 years old having this sort of consciousness experience. Obviously, you didn't know what consciousness was at the time, but how did you perceive that? And when is the first time you ever told anyone about that?
Oh, like the first time I actually talked about that probably was in the experiencer group. Um,
Okay.
because really, like, I wasn't going to tell my parents. I might have told the odd boyfriend or something. I probably did. Probably end up telling a boyfriend. Or I had. I was lucky that way. All three of the guys, like, I've never been married. Um, I'm a spinster librarian. Never been married, and but the three guys that I had long-term relationships with, they were all into the consciousness stuff and into
Mm,
UFOs and had very open minds. Um, so I probably told them the story, but because when you're 6 years old, the only other than human consciousness that I knew of was God, right? So I thought I was speaking to God, and
uh,
I don't, who knows who I was speaking to, but um, yeah, so I was, that summer my dog had gotten hit by a bus.
mhm,
He was a bus chaser, and back in the 60s, or this might have been, yeah, this was probably 1970. Back in that time, we used to open our door and just let our dog out, no yard or anything, and he would chase cars and crazy time. But anyway, so I was walking down the street and I saw him come running, and a bus came along and he chased after, and I guess I think a van hit him, and anyways, he went flying. And so I'm, 6 years old, and I run over and I see that he's dead. Like, and it's at 6, I somehow understood the fact that, yeah, he was dead. Like, I remember looking at him and thinking, oh my God, like his eye was all funny and he wasn't moving. And I'm like, oh, I think he's dead. And, you know, at first there wasn't much emotion because it was shocking. But I think it set in after a while, and I thought about it and thought about it for about a month. This was about midsummer. And then early in the school year, it was early September, I think I was going into grade 1, and I was waiting for my school bus. And I was started thinking about death and thinking, oh, I just couldn't wrap my head around the idea of of like my consciousness being just sort of wiped out, and that I would just cease to exist. That just didn't compute with me. And so I was just like really struggling with this idea of dying and just no longer existing. And it just didn't feel right. And then all of a sudden, so I'm standing in a foyer, as some people might call it. And so it's a small space. It's 5 by 5, maybe 9 feet high, and I'm in between two doors and waiting for the bus. And all of a sudden, while I'm thinking of those thoughts of death, I feel this sort of presence enter the room. And it's hard to describe how that felt like, but I could feel it's, and it's hard to describe, but it's like it felt like pressure coming up against me. Like it wasn't uncomfortable, but I could feel it. There was like a pressure there. And it felt like it was this very, very large, non corporeal entity or being that was trying to fit itself into a really small space. And I was being pushed up against the wall, kind of like, oh, there's not much room in here. And the entity didn't say anything except for these words: death does not exist. That was it, in a deep baritone voice, which is probably why I thought it was God. And also, who else in my at a 6-year-old a 6-year-old brain is gonna, who else is gonna be talking to you,
mhm,
hopefully, like it's God and nobody else. Um, and so, I mean, that's all that happened. And then after the words were said, the feeling of that pressure receded, like it had left the room, and that was it. but it had a huge effect on me. And I felt like after that point, like as I was going through school, like by the time I was 9 and 10 years old, I felt like I was being guided towards particular books. Um, like things would just sort of come into like my sphere, and I'd be like, oh yeah, I think I should read that. Like it felt like and so I was reading all these wild books. I remember one book was, I don't know, like 600 pages, called Cosmic Consciousness, and it was in a very very complex English. It was written for philosophers and so on, and I'm reading this because I was sort of directed to read it. So that really shaped, I guess, who I was, and an openness to the other. But I also never shared this with my parents, knowing it just wasn't something you would share, you know?
Wow. Wow. So and I can understand that's how most people have to hold the secret, and because of the stigma there. So you live life, you had this experience, you may have brought this up a couple times to in passing to boyfriends. Then you get 29 and you have this UFO sighting. So can you talk about what happened there? Like set
Sure.
the scene for us.
Absolutely. And that was really, I mean, that's probably the second biggest impactful thing that happened to me. Um, so we were out for a walk. I think it was around 11 o'clock at night, and this was in Ottawa, Ontario, and it was about 11 o'clock at night. Oh, I think I said that. And November. So I think there was a bit of snow on the ground, and it was like a overcast night. So you could see very well, like the park was well lit, but kind of a low ceiling in the sky. So we're walking along. I'm with my roommate at the time and his best friend, and I look up and I see this object that it's the shape of a football, and it's about 500 feet up and 500 feet away. And it's a dark metallic gray, and it had lights going around it. So the object was, like, I described it as like the size of maybe two 747s, one on top of the other. So
Mm.
it had this real mass to it. Um, it was really solid. There was no doubt about its solidity, and it had no sound whatsoever. And it had these like sort of lights going around it, like sort of little portal lights going around. So they were about maybe a foot and a half in diameter, but they weren't lit up. They kind of just glowed, and they were in this pattern, red, yellow, green, blue, and it went all the way around the sort of the perimeter of the oval or football shaped object. Excuse me. And then it just disappeared. And so that was in the western sky. It reappeared in the eastern sky
Wow.
and then disappeared and then reappeared in the western sky. And, or maybe I've got it backwards, but anyways, you see what I'm saying? It's jumping around the sky. So it reappears the last time in its original spot, and then this just disappears. And I just keep walking. Like, I don't believe what I've seen. And I get this strange feeling, like this sort of darkness is kind of coming down like this, like either my mind is shutting it down or something. And then my roommate said, did anybody just see that object? And I said, oh my God, you saw that? Yeah, I mean, like that was for real. Like I don't even think I thought it was real. And so I got him to describe to me what he saw. And basically, what I described to you is what he told me. And so I was able to kind of like, okay, this is interesting. That was huge. That was definitely not us. That wasn't something. I mean, we went through all the different options that it could be, and there's just no way it could have been anything other than what we thought it was, which was a non-human craft of some sort.
That is crazy. Was it reported by anyone else in the city by chance?
You
Or do you?
know, we never looked into it. I never reported it. I think we just assumed, I don't know, that no one would believe us, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Years later, I think I did report it to New Fork, um, and a couple of other, maybe MUFON as well. Um, but that was years and years later. So no, we never. And I never. There was nothing in the news. We didn't see it in the paper or anything. And I told some friends, but they, I think they thought I was mistaken, right? And family, I think again, they thought, you know, that I genuinely saw something, but I was mistaken about what I've seen. My stepfather and my mom believed me because my stepfather worked for the military. He used to monitor the Russians up in Nunavik at
Mm-hmm.
one of the monitoring stations up there, the Air Force. Sorry, yeah, the military, Canadian military station up there. So monitoring the Russians for NORAD, and they used to talk about three types of craft that they would see on their radar. So one would be commercial airlines and private airlines or private planes. The second type of craft would be incursions from the Russians, and then the third kind of craft, he just called them bogies, and they were the things that they didn't know what they were. So he
Mm-hmm.
was convinced that definitely that we were being visited by something, and he actually directed me towards a book called Above Top Secret, um, which I forget who wrote that, but that kind of, I think, was one of the first books I read about UFOs.
Actually, I have to look that up because that's gonna bug me because I know who wrote that too. But
Yeah, so do I. I'm just for blanking on his name. Yeah.
so with that being said, okay, 29 years old, had this sighting of something huge like that, which is crazy. I'm still waiting for the day that I get to see something that big. However, I saw something pretty significant, 47 objects. They were like 3 to 5 feet, I'd say, probably in diameter. But they were all metallic and they all disappeared in the thin air. So that moment of when you see something that you know isn't from here, and you're just like in awe in that moment. How long did that last for you? Were you talking to the friends that were present? Did you guys discuss that over time, and how did that work out?
Yeah. I mean, it's still going on, right? I mean, the obsession started then. Um, I talked to friends a lot at the very beginning for the first couple of months, and then I stopped because I think they got sick of it, hearing about it. And the one, and it's funny, the third guy that was with us missed the whole thing, and so couldn't talk to him about it. My roommate didn't want to talk about it. He was like, I don't want to talk about it. He was just flat out, I don't want to talk about it. So I kind of ran out of people to talk to about it. So I just kind of, uh, I stopped obviously talking about it. But I was still dreaming. I was having all kinds of wild dreams. I mean, through the roof, crazy wild dreams about aliens and about and religious figures. And it was just crazy. Um, and then I think the following summer, I think it was the following summer, I had another sighting, and that was with my boyfriend who had just come back from Japan, and we had gone camping.
Let's hold it right there. That second sighting, let's say for right after this
Mhm.
break. We're running right into it. So,
Sure.
guys, this is going to be interesting. Cate Chassé is sharing UFO sightings and a lot more here with us tonight on the After Hours radio show. Make sure you guys don't go anywhere. Like I said, go tell a friend. Tell a friend the show is on. Bring them in so they can enjoy what we talk about here tonight. And then we'll be back right after this break. The rest of you don't go anywhere. All right, we're clear and we are still on live with everyone so they can see and hear us. I was gonna say the author, and I'll say it again when we come back. I think it's Timothy Good. I looked up.
Yes. Yep.
Okay, And it was funny you brought a foyer or foyer here because Dave, who runs the channel, he's Canadian, he's up in BC, and this is one of the big sticking points here. Is it foyer or is it foyer? What
What?
do you prefer?
Well, I think I say foyer, but I'm French, right? So foyer is how it would be said, I guess, if in an English in an English accent or whatever.
I'm team foyer. I'm team foyer. I think Dave is foyer. He's a
Oh
foyer.
no.
That's what I said. I was like, no, it's not it. But then he also says instead of against, he says against. And I'm like, nah, that's not how you say it. This against.
Against.
Yeah,
Against. Yeah.
it's
Against.
against,
Yeah.
not against. So we give him a hard time because I'm down here in California and he's up in Canada. So we have this. I hate hockey. I love hockey. I hate hockey. I love. We're kind of back and forth as far as that goes, but
Yeah, yeah.
just joking though.
Mhm.
But yeah, so let me say what's up to some of the people that just dropped in late here. Once again, Andrew and Gnomes Trucking in the building. Appreciate you showing up. Ever sore as well. I didn't get to all you guys at the beginning of the show. Bob Berkins, appreciate you, Bob Berkins, for coming in. Lloyd Hannanen, thanks for showing
Lord.
up here. Okay. Yep, it's CFD. We'll be talking about that because my guy Victor Vigiani is part of that. So we'll
Mm.
talk about that and more. Super crazy movie geek. Foyer, dude. Foyer. No, it's foyer. It's foyer, sir. Come on now. Let's see. Earl Orbs, appreciate you showing on up. Earl Orbs says foyer. That's right. Foyer. Exactly. Let's see. Who else is here? Thanks to Mothman for putting Kate's info up there. Guys, make sure you go over there and follow Kate. Let's see. We have Woo Riders DG. Thank you for coming on in, sir. Who else do we have? We have Flubber Lane. Hey, Flubber Lane. Thanks for showing up tonight. Just going back in the chat, guys. We might be current. Let's see. Eve. I see you, Eve. Hey, Eve. Thanks for coming in. Bim Jim, I saw you in there earlier as well. I don't know if I got to say your name, but thanks for coming in, Jim. Eternity Eternal. And I think we're Bob Thorson. Bob Thorson, I saw you come in at the buzzer. Appreciate you coming in. Okay, yeah. Gory Tiger. Okay. Gory Tiger, I see you. Okay, yep. Now we're coming. Appreciate all you guys coming on in to the show here tonight. Make sure if we can, since we have time, let's look right under the screen here. There's a little thumbs up, thumbs down button. If you wouldn't mind hitting one of the two, let YouTube know what you think about the show. Let's try to get them up over 100 for this show if possible. We would love that to happen. And yeah, Male W40, glad you found your glasses, Mr. Rob G. Dude, I couldn't navigate the earth. I couldn't believe I was so out of place the other night doing the show, and I have to read the chat and I can't see the words. So it was just horrible. Yeah. I never thought I'd be that guy that depended on glasses and so, but yeah. Thank you, Mel WD40. Scott Rosen, appreciate you showing up. Also, Dead Fish Cheese Spread. I see you out there. And I bragged on you guys. I told Kate that you guys were an awesome chat and an awesome audience, and you'd have great questions. Don't make me look crazy tonight here, guys. So make sure we get some really good questions in for our guests. As we have about 45 seconds before we come back from break. Let's see. Damian Wyatt. Hey, Damian Wyatt. Appreciate you showing on up. And Amy. I see you, Amy. Member Amy. Members. And you can actually join membership. I forgot that we have them on Spaced Out Radio here as well. I believe links in the description, or you can go to the community tab. We appreciate any help here on the channel. 5 seconds. We're coming back. All right, everybody. Welcome back. Spaced Out Radio, After Hours Radio Show. Back half of the first hour here with our guest, Cate Chassé, actually. We are actually talking UFOs, UFO experiences, UFO research, everything related to that. If you miss any of the conversation here tonight, make sure you jump in the archive. It's 100% free at youtube.com. We're going to jump right back into Cate's story. Kate, you were talking about, we heard the first UFO sighting at 29. Huge UFO, like two jumbo jets stacked on top of each other. That's crazy. That's a mothership. So you were going into talking about a second sighting, if you wouldn't mind picking up from there.
Yeah. It was at the following summer. We were at a provincial park, the Killarney Provincial Park, which so it's sort of northern Ontario. In the direction that we saw the objects, there's like literally nothing there all the way to the North Pole, basically. So it's not like there's a base around there or anything. And it was, probably 10:30 at night, and we had a campfire going, and there was one other campfire about maybe 20, 30 feet away with, maybe 5, 6 people sitting around that. And it was my boyfriend and I sitting at another one. And we were just playing guitar and enjoying the night, and beautiful clear night. And of course you can see the stars like crazy. And so the people at the other campfire, they saw everything that we saw. And so I probably noticed it first because I'm always watching the sky, right? And I see this star just sort of appear, and it's like really bright, like Venus when it's really close. And then I see another one and another one. And I think in the end, there was about 14 of them that just appeared, just sporadically around the sky. And then they started dancing around. So I called them the dancing stars. And they did that for about 20 minutes. And we all watched, 7, 8, 9 of us were watching this for about 20 minutes. And then one by one, they just slowly disappeared. That's all that happened. I mean, that's all, but it doesn't sound like much, but it blows your mind because stars don't do that, right? And they don't dance around like that. And we're like, and it's just perplexing. It's like, what was that? Because it's not like the sighting I had earlier that year in November. It's something completely different. I mean, now I might have the words for it and call them, maybe they were orbs, I don't know, but to us, they just look like stars, but they didn't behave like stars.
And so, again, reaction to that, like, what's everyone's reaction? Immediately, did you feel extraterrestrial, not of this earth, or were you wondering for a while, just trying to figure out what it was? Or
we definitely all talked about it, and I think we all sort of concluded that it was something maybe extraterrestrial, but it's so inconclusive, right? So, but we definitely knew it was not normal. This is not normal for a star to do that. We saw something special. And to this day, I was actually just doing a meditation last night, and I sort of had that memory flashback, and it brings this really just sort of warm feeling back to me when I see it. It was so beautiful, and it felt like such a gift. I mean, we don't know if it was a gift, but it felt like that. Just like the first sighting I had felt like a demonstration, and it took me a while to come to that conclusion. It wasn't like, oh, look, we just had a demonstration. I mean, though that terminology even that took a while to formulate, and And I remember actually meeting Victor Vigiani, who I'm involved with now, with the Canadians for Disclosure, back in, maybe 10 years after that sighting, and telling him about it, and just, you know, even then still trying to decipher, like, what's going on, why are they here, and what was that, was it felt like a, at that point, saying it felt like a demonstration, but why, like, it was so early days at that, like, now we have the terminology for it, and we have, people writing about stuff like that, and you can say, oh yeah, it's a demonstration, it's to
Yeah.
help raise your consciousness and blah blah blah, but back then we didn't have that.
Yeah, a lot of jargon and type words in our community, yeah, to describe that makes it. And I thought about it, and I shouldn't say this, but I'm going to say it because if somebody beats me to it, oh well. Wanted to do a book that kind of translates those sorts of terms to just the average person, because people coming in tonight that never looked at UFO stuff, they're like, consciousness, they don't know any of these terms. They're like, what is,
Yeah.
so if you had something to translate, that would probably be a good gateway for people that were coming in. um
Yeah. Yeah.
I was reading through your bio, and it said that you have witnessed 8 distinct type of craft. So I
Hmm.
want to talk about that because there's, as you know, Skywatcher out there, the team Skywatcher, and they actually have done something similar to that, which I think is key. Is like, we should know, okay, there's X amount of different craft, and then that way you can kind of put things under each one as far as behaviors to get closer to getting answers. Have you looked at their list, and do the 8 craft that you came up with, do they align with the ones that they listed at Skywatcher?
Yeah, I did look at their list. The disc, I've seen a disc. Um, I don't know if I mean, yeah, I don't know if, I can't remember the rest of them, but I do remember thinking, okay, yeah, I've seen that one. Um, and they seem to see a lot of stuff. Oh, I saw a manta ray shaped. I think they mentioned that. But they seem to see a lot of, um, like, orb-like objects, or objects that, like the one that with the tentacles. Oh, there we go. So I've seen, yeah, there's the manta ray. The My oval shaped, football shaped thing could maybe be an egg shaped.
Mm,
Um, and then the tic tac, I've seen a, what I call the tubular shaped object. So I've heard the tic tac described in different ways. The tubular object that I saw was at the very least, 50 feet in length, if not longer.
wow.
Yeah. So I kind of got the idea that tic tacs were a little shorter, but I've seemed to hear different takes on that.
Yeah, because in the 50s they talked about flying butane tanks, and those are huge.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So let me ask you this: the egg shaped one, I'm the football shape that you talk about. What could you describe more about what that looked like? Because that's sort of like where my sighting falls into that sort of oblong shape. What did you observe on that? Like, did you get any information on that, or how would you describe that particular type of craft?
Yeah, that seemed to be, I mean, I don't know how long is like the size of it, but it was quite massive. Like I said, like, how long is a 747? It
Oh
was
wow,
it
okay,
was huge. So, what is that? 50, 60 feet in length,
yeah, probably, yeah, somewhere in there, huge.
maybe more. And so if it was, let's say if it's 60 feet in length, and then maybe about 40 feet high. So like a shape like a football, basically, like a what American
Yeah.
football, Canadian football. Um, and it was definitely metallic. It was like a metallic gray color. And then the colors that the like the little portals, the colored portals, about a foot and a half to 2 feet in diameter, they were very muted. Like, they weren't emanating light. They were just, you could see light. You could see the color, but it's like it had a haze over the light. and they went around in that pattern, red, yellow, green, blue. And I've never actually heard anybody describe this particular craft. And that's the weird thing I find about a lot of the sightings is almost everyone is different. So like either there's a lot of people visiting us, a lot of different types of people, or they're like us with our cars. We have, how many brands of cars are there, and then within each brand, you've got 15 models. Like maybe
Mhm.
there's the same way about craft, or maybe it's all different civilizations. Hard to know.
Yeah, there's definitely. I want to say the Roger Murray, one of our viewers, talked about Kentucky or Hopkinsville Goblin. I think that sighting kind of matches the craft you described with the blinking light, flashing lights going around it. And I know there's a couple more that are exactly as you described that craft. When you think about the when you look at the list that Skywatcher has put together, because I was just thinking, I was looking around and I'm like, okay, it seems like they have pretty much all of the types of shapes that I've heard mentioned. When you compare them to the ones that you have looked at, are there any missing from their list is that you could point to? Because I know they've had the morphine, the sort of morphine ones. I don't know if that's covered on Skywatcher's list, but have you seen anything strange that isn't listed on their list?
Well, they don't seem to have a sphere on there. So I've seen a 4 foot in diameter metallic sphere. And then I've also seen a boomerang shaped object, a small boomerang. So let's say each wing of the boomerang is about maybe 30 feet in length.
Okay, okay. And since you were older, this is your second sighting, and then third, fourth going forward. Are these ones that you ended up reporting to an agency like New Fork or MUFON?
Apart from the football shape, no. And so the 2 sightings I had in 92 and 93, after that, I didn't have sightings until 2022. And so by 2022 and 2023 were the rest of the 6 others. They At that time, I think there were so many people having sightings, I, I didn't bother reporting it. And
Okay.
just when I reported the football, I just found it's like I sent the report in and that was it. So, maybe it's worth reporting to gather data, but I think unless we have one reporting site, I mean, how good is that data going to be if
Everywhere, yes.
yeah.
Sparsed out. Yeah, that makes sense. And that's one of the keys that we should realize in this community is that we kind of all need to be together for this movement to work anyways. And we should probably have a central database that's accessible to us all. That way we're able, and that's why I brought up Skywatcher, because I kind of feel like when I'm looking at agencies out there, it feels like they're at least trying to do that by putting up saying, okay, hey, we've looked at all these different incidents and here's the shapes that we have been able to come up to. I'm sure you can add or remove from the list, but it at least gives everyone a central starting point to focus on. And then if we add data underneath each one of those categories, I think that builds our centralized data list. So hopefully they keep the data open to the public, for one, which is what we know some of these groups have signed NDAs and kind of closed their data off to a particular group, which doesn't help the effort, doesn't help what it is that we're trying to do. Have you had in any of your sightings any sort of interaction or any idea of what might be in the craft? Because my sighting and anything else I've done, I haven't had any like face-to-face extraterrestrial contact or anything like that. Have you had anything close to that outside of the consciousness incident?
Um, I mean, related directly to the craft, no. But in 1997, I did encounter a light being in my house at 3 in the morning.
Wow.
So yeah, that that was quite the experience as well, and very strange too. So 3 o'clock in the morning, I get up, and I live in Toronto at the time, and so it, like uh, I didn't turn any lights on because it's bright from the city lights and stuff. And I had a long, long hallway from my bedroom to the bathroom. So I sort of got out of bed, walked down the long hallway in the dark, but the light from the city illuminating the way. I get into the bathroom and I turn on the light, go to the washroom. And then when I turn off the light, there's a being standing in front of me, and the being is made of light. Like it's about 5'10". It seems to be the shape of a male. And the light that it's emanating from this shape is like bright, like a star almost. It was beautiful. But also in a way just completely shocking. So when I turned off the light and see this being standing there, I didn't actually experience any fear or anything, but I literally just collapsed to the ground. And when I looked up again, the being was gone. And so the fact that I actually collapsed to the ground is the one sort of tangible thing about that sighting. I'm like, there's no way I would fall down in the middle of the night because I see something like that. That is just that was the proof for me. Because half of the issue is like you don't believe your own eyes, and then you think, who the hell's going to believe me? And so I never told anybody about that until probably being in the experiencer group is probably the first time I told that story. But it definitely stayed with me. I mean, it blows your mind. I mean, a being, first of all, being just materializing in your house is just crazy to begin with.
Yes.
But a being made of light, I mean, it kind of reminded me of the beings from Cocoon, which I had seen that
Mm.
movie
Oh yeah.
years
Yes.
before. Yeah. So I kind of thought, wow, did I see something like that? But it's never happened again. And I don't know why it happened and why I saw it. But yeah, it was pretty wild.
Wow, you brought me back to Cocoon. Wow, and that those were light beings. Now to think about it, because I'm
Yeah.
always trying to visualize what these light beings would look like, and that's perfect. The ones from Cocoon, that makes total sense.
Yep.
And yeah, just the materializing in your house, and we hear a lot of stories about these beings, whether they're light beings, grays, or other type of extraterrestrials. They can just pop up in your house right in front of you in your bedroom at night. And that's the thing that frightens me, because I have not had that direct face to face like you did, and I'm just dreading the day, because it feels like it could happen any moment, sort of thing, right?
hmm What's interesting though is I actually didn't experience fear, but my body did collapse. And I don't know if it was necessarily from fear. I think it's a shock beyond anything that you would normally have a shock over, right? Like I mean it's shocking to the point where it completely disarms you, you
Mm,
know. I mean someone actually suggested to me that maybe the being had done that to me, but I don't think so. I think it was just a human or a human animal biological response, just like wah, collapse, you know.
yeah. Was there missing time related to that?
Well, I don't think so. No, no,
Okay.
no. And I don't have any experience or memory of being abducted, really. I do have one. I had one dream shortly after my sighting in '92, where I was introduced to like a woman. We were in this large room, and a woman was walking towards me with like a 4-year-old girl, maybe 5-year-old girl, holding her hand and walking towards me. And when I looked down at the girl, and I thought, oh, she's got ridges on her forehead,
Mm,
and she kind of looked like me. She had brown hair, brown eyes, but she had these ridges. And then I looked up to the mom, and she was full on alien, like ridges and like the slightly larger eyes, not totally elongated, but slightly larger and definitely alien looking. And again, in that dream, when I saw the mother, I again collapsed to the floor. So this seems to be a thing with me. If I freak out, I'm just going to collapse to the floor.
Reminds me of those. I don't know if you've ever seen those goats that
Yeah, fainting goats.
yeah, those are hilarious to me. Oh my god. Okay.
Yeah.
But okay, so or did you get this feeling, because it sounds like maybe hybridization? Is that what you're thinking at that point?
I mean, that was a dream. At the time I attribute it to um just having nightmares because I saw a spaceship. I still wasn't, you know,
All the way into
thinking,
it. Yeah.
"Oh, I was abducted." I mean, maybe I was. I have no idea. I have no recollection of that. That's the only hint that I have of anything like that is a dream.
Any regression? Have you thought about doing regression?
I did a regression, um, and this was before my, or was it? No, no, it was after my sighting. Um, that's right. It was not in '94, I think it was. I did a regression for past lives, but it didn't quite turn out the way the hypnotherapist. She was a psychologist and who was learning hypnotherapy, and it didn't quite work out the way she thought it would because I didn't go into a past life. I So she regressed me back. They take you further and further back. So you're 2 years old, and now you're a year old, 6 months. Okay, now you're at the point of your birth,
Mm.
and you picture yourself and or you see yourself in the womb, um, and then you go further back before your conception, and that's when she wants you to start describing what you see. So I start describing. I'm standing in a tube, and I'm in this tube that has a window on the top part, but the rest, it's like a tube that's all around my body, and I'm just standing there, but halfway up there's a window so I can see out, and I'm looking out. I'm in a deep cavern underneath the ground, and it's a large cavern, kind of like a red colored stone that's been carved out from underneath. And then the tube starts to spin, and I start to rise, and the tube rises up into my backyard of where I grew up, basically. So she's like, "What?" And when I woke up from that, or came to from that, which that whole thing took 2 hours, but it seemed like 5 minutes, right? It didn't take long to describe that, and that took 2 hours. So it was weird. It was a weird feeling waking up from that. But also I'm like, what the hell? And I think so was she. Was just like, whoa, this is weird. She had no idea what it was, and neither do I.
And so
Very strange.
is she one that specializes in regression therapy, or was it?
She was new at it. She was I think she was a psychologist, and she was training to do hypnotherapy, and she was towards the ends of her training, but she was doing, I think it was more for fun, like past life regression. So, she's expected me to say, I wake up and I'm Cleopatra or something,
Yeah, yeah,
or I'm living in the Middle Ages or something. But this is what comes out of my mouth type thing. And I don't know. I can't tell you what that means. I have no idea.
and I'll tell you, it's just you hear some people that say, you have to be careful who you have regress you, and make sure this person knows this or knows that. So that's why I haven't done it, because I think if I do it, probably going to find out that maybe I have been abducted, because I'm under this theory that most people probably have had some sort of experience and just don't recall it. But we're going to go ahead and talk about that on the other side of the break, guys. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.
You're listening to After Hours with Mr. Rob G on the only place where you can own the night. Spaced Out Radio.
Spaced Out Radio. You've tuned your dial to the right frequency.
All right, we're clear. We're off camera for 5 minutes. Kate, see you in a minute.
Okay.
All right. right, welcome back. Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours radio show. We are in after hour number 2. We are bringing our guest back on stage here, Cate Chassé, and we have 25 seconds before we come back from radio. Guys, this is the hour for your questions. I did tag a couple because I saw a couple come through. If you do pose them, please put them in all caps. That way it's easier for me to see them, and we'll pose them at the end of the show, at the end of the interview. 5 seconds left, guys. Here we go. All right, everyone. Welcome back. Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours radio show with me, your host, Mr. Rob G. We are back with our guest, Cate Chassé, UFO researcher, UFO investigator, UFO experiencer. We're talking a lot of UFO and alien stuff here tonight. We'll get into some other stuff as well. Make sure if you miss any of the conversation, rewind, go to the archive, youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Getting back into the show. Here we go. So let me ask you this, Cate. So underneath the oceans, there's craft going in and out. There's things called USOs. Lou Elizondo has made a statement, was within the last year or so, that he saw something huge pass by derelict. And actually, I'm going to have that. Let's see, I have that clip here. We go ahead and play it. Soundbite here for the radio audience. Here we go.
There is a video, high resolution video of, I can't say what platform it was taken from. I can't say where it was taken from, okay. But an object that, do you know how large an offshore oil derrick is? They're huge, right? Yeah. They're like almost like a small city, right? They're like one city block. They're huge. They're enormous things. There is a video that shows one of these objects underwater that goes by. The speed was calculated between 450 and 550 knots underwater, and it was bigger than the offshore derrick that it was passing, because you could see in the video the offshore derrick, and you could see this thing zip right by it.
Jesus.
So something is bigger than an oil derrick underwater, moving at a super high rate of speed. What do you think is going on down there? What do you think the purpose of extraterrestrials going under the ocean is, if you had to guess?
I mean, if I had to guess, I'd say they have a base, maybe many bases. Lou seems to think, and a lot of those government people seem to think, that these people, these whatever they are, aliens or whatever, have been here for a really long time. So either they've always been here, and maybe they were here on Earth even before we became intelligent, let's say, or they were extraterrestrial and came here a long time ago and settled here, or they're relatively new and they're extraterrestrial and they've built bases and so on, knowing that we're advancing. And I don't know. It seems like there's a presence here, and they're here on at least a semi-permanent basis. I really do believe that.
Okay, so semi-permanent basis. Agreed. There's probably bases underneath there. What do you feel? Do you feel like there is a reason to be alert as far as on the defense, or do you feel like it's Levin light? They're just here to help us out and guide us to the promised land.
I think we need more data. Seems like the people or the craft that I've seen have all seemed pretty cool. Like very like a lot of the craft I've seen are white. Like they have that beautiful, like really pearly white exterior. I don't know. There's something exceptionally high tech, obviously. So somehow it then is smooth, very smooth surfaces. Somehow to me that seems like something benevolent. Maybe it's crazy.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've not experienced really any fear with any of these craft. Um, the only time I've experienced fear with the phenomena has been in with some really horrible dreams of really dark entities. But other than that, which that they could just be nightmares, right? So far my encounters have been benevolent. I haven't, as far as I know, haven't been abducted, but that's not doesn't seem to be the case for everybody. And so I guess I'm of the mind that we're being visited by all of the above. There seems to be, maybe there's multidimensionals, maybe there's people that have been here a very long time, maybe even from this planet. There are extraterrestrials. There does seem to be non-corporeal light type beings, or completely non-corporeal beings. So I think it's all of the above. And I don't think, you live in a big city, you lock your doors, you're careful what neighborhood you walk in at night, maybe. If you're a woman, maybe you buddy up with somebody. I mean, you're careful, right? So it's a big universe out there. I think we need to be cautious. We need more data. We need to know. We need more information. I mean, we're all just guessing for the most part, and we've got the government telling us mixed stories, um, and other people, and then channelers telling us things, but who do we believe? And I hate that it's all over the place.
You're right. You're right. Channelers telling us one thing, the government purposely misdirecting us. And, do you ever see a moment where any government on the face of Earth uh, admits that this is going on?
I don't think they're going to have any choice. I think there's going to come a time when they're just going to have to deal with it. I think it's going to become so obvious. Um, and I mean, I think the government is already working on like a sort of a controlled disclosure. And I kind of agree with it to a certain degree. Like, I think there's a lot of people that this is going to basically destroy their worldview. It's really going to mess them up. And I think people in the UFO community, yeah, we're fairly comfortable with the idea, but I think there's a lot of the world, I don't know if they are. So I think a controlled disclosure is a good idea. And that the stock market is so volatile already. I mean, it just doesn't, if we had an economic collapse, that's not going to help anybody. So I think a very controlled disclosure would be a good thing. I just think they need to move it along a bit. And they need to start including, like, really opening it up to scientists and researchers so that they can really start. I mean, like you say, we need a database. We need to categorize them. We need to figure out, are they friendly? Are some friendly? Do we have treaties? Did we make a treaty with the right group? Maybe we need to change who we're cozying up to. Like, we don't know anything.
And that's one of the main things too, right? Because outside of the government and things that we think that they may be able to tell us about the phenomena from what they've learned, we lean on channelers to be the ones to kind of deliver the extraterrestrial message. But as I talked to a good friend, Reed Summers has his own channel, Emergent. You guys should check it out. But Reed, feels like we should look at what we know to kind of determine if it's, if this presence is something to be worried about or not. And, there's a lot of things, as I talked to a guest last night, that points to these things doing things to us, making us disappear. In some cases, maybe even unaliving us. So it's a situation where, if we find out if it's bad, if it's that bad, and the government allows us to find out the day that they want to, land and do whatever they're going to do to us here on Earth, then that doesn't really help. And then if we go with their controlled disclosure, the slow drip disclosure, the only reason they are, even wanting to address it is because they want to make sure they have power on the other side of disclosure. And do we really want this same group that has been keeping this a secret from us and exposing the people to all these different things to be the ones to also head up the effort to move forward past disclosure? Do you think this government, and not just our, Canadian or United States, but just global government, any government out there, should be able to be in that driver's seat when it comes to figuring out what we're going to do on the other side of disclosure?
Well, it's a good question because, what if whoever's out there tries to start first contact with the Chinese or the Russians? They might not choose America to make first, and that's, I think, in a way, we don't have. People don't like the idea of a world government, but we need somebody who represents all of us. But there is nobody that does that, you know. So who's like, do we really want? I don't want to get political here, but do we really want Donald Trump making first contact? Maybe not. Depends on what side you're on. So that's difficult. So maybe it needs to be a group of. It makes sense to have a group of people, maybe comprised of maybe some religious, some, experiencers, some scientists, some politicians, a mixture of people, philosophers, a small group, maybe 20 people, representative of people around the world, and that committee makes first contact. But we don't know. Like, maybe there's already been first contact. Maybe we have treaties. Maybe, I just watched Tony Rodriguez on Fade to Black, and he's talking about this 20 and back. And so maybe we have this massive space program where we're already traveling the stars. So it's just so, it goes from, there's nothing going on to like we're traveling the stars. And like when there's no in between, like we need to get all that in between stuff, you know.
Yeah, because as you said, and it pick any global leader or dictator from around the globe. I don't necessarily think that I want one of those guys to be in the middle of deciding what happens to humanity, and that's what bothers me about the treaty situation. Because I've always felt like, okay, let's just say the whole Eisenhower thing happened. And there was some sort of goal that was supposed to be met by human beings by a certain deadline, and we missed the deadline. Or they're like, hey, get rid of all the nuclear weapons, do it by this year, and then we'll help you do X, Y, and Z. But these powers that be are not going to give up nuclear weapons. It's just not going to happen. So it's like, is it even fair for those people to be the ones that have that conversation on behalf of humanity? Or I agree with you. I think it should be a group comprised of just regular individuals, some theologians, and and it needs to be people that we all agree on as humanity. But how do we even get to that moment, right? Because we need everyone together, or we need a moment where everyone is focused on the same thing so that we can have that conversation. How do we get there? Because that's really what I'm here to do, is to try to find a way to get to exactly where you're talking about.
I think we can get there, but we need to want to get there. We're all focused on Epstein right now, right? Like, everybody can focus on those Epstein files. The whole world is focused on that. So that's possible to focus on something. So maybe how do we get everybody to shift their focus from that to, this subject?
I thought about that because as you said, and we're thinking on the same page here, because I've said this before, that there needs to be a moment where the whole world is able to pay attention to one thing. We had that during COVID for a minute, where the whole world was focused on this one thing. That would have been the perfect time to have the conversation. It's like, okay, that passes. So it's like, will we ever get another moment like that where the world is paying attention? And then we had the New Jersey drone situation back last December. The whole world is looking at this. it's the moment where we could step in, or somebody can step in and have the UFO conversation. And it didn't happen. And you just keep wondering, is there going to be another moment where we have the world's attention? And as you said, right now, there's this whole political thing going on with the Epstein thing. And it is a moment where we're all focused. So we know we can do it. It's just bait and switch so we could have that actual conversation. And it's like, who would be the one to actually, move that forward? And that's where I'm at. That's where I'm still trying to figure out, like, who would be that group. Would it be influencers, like some of the top influencers on social media? Would it be like, who would it actually be? Because I think all the energy that a lot of people, because I don't include myself in this group, that are putting into Congress, forming these committees and going into these skiffs and coming out with answers, it's just a distraction and a waste of time. And it's like that same energy could be put towards someone or a group of people that would actually make a difference in this. That's where I'm at, and that's where I'm trying to figure out, who would that be?
Yeah. I mean, I think everything that's going on with Congress and what Ross Coulthard's doing with his whatever his show is, what's it called there?
Need to know, and
Not that one, the
Reality
one
check.
Reality Check, and everybody in Washington pushing this forward, and then with Congress, and you've got Lou and Danny Sheehan, that whole group. I think that's really important. I mean, it seems like the topic is slowly becoming more mainstream. It has moved. It has shifted since 2017. There has been a major shift. I think we want it fast, right? We want, like, I'm past disclosure. I want contact, right?
Yep.
I think I want contact anyways, assuming they're good. But I do think maybe the phenomena itself has in some ways control of
Yeah.
its disclosing itself. So it's not showing us, it's showing individuals, but it's not doing a mass sighting like at the Super Bowl or something, which if it ever did, then that would be it. All eyes would turn to that subject. And maybe there'll be a moment when that happens, but when that moment happens, the shit will hit the fan, right? I mean, if there was a major sighting at the Super Bowl where it was undisputable, it was filmed by many different news people, news stations, that's it. I mean, everything will change, and it will be probably close to catastrophic. It will change everything. And so I want that. I want the change, and I want disclosure, but I don't want chaos either. So it's got to happen in a very particular way.
And that's the thing. That's really the conundrum too. Yeah, is that it's going to be, and I gotta tell you, I'm team catastrophic disclosure, and I want it to happen now, and
Yeah.
I want to wake up tomorrow, and that moment is there where the UFO, they're just sitting there and they're just saying, "Hey, we're here." And I kind of feel like, and I always say this to people, that I think there have been moments, like if we were to look at the New Jersey drone situation, I just feel like if that was anomalous, if that was ET, orchestrating that, then those are moments where they're trying to say, "Hey, we're here, guys, we're ready to have this conversation." And they probably wouldn't land physically on the White House lawn, because look at us, we're crazy and we'll do all type of stuff. Who would get out of craft and try to come shake hands, right? So I think that first step is going to be that New Jersey drone, where we're just sitting over your city for 2 months. We're here every day like clockwork. We're not going anywhere, and we're ready to sit down and have this talk. And I always wonder, if that was anomalous, is that an opportunity lost where they're trying to do it and we're just not getting the message, or we're not, we don't have that group that we were talking about earlier assembled that has a plan to kind of interject and reach out and make that contact moment. I think that's probably one of the problems that we're running into, is like, how do you accept or receive that want for contact from them if they're out there? How do you reach out? What's that first thing that you do? And I think that's kind of where we should start figuring things out, because I think we've been handed numerous occasions where they may have tried to reach out and get that going. And it's like we can't keep ignoring it forever. We have to have some sort of plan to initiate that contact. And I don't know, I've talked about, the same way they have Nazca lines, and we had ancient humans drawing things on the ground for obviously something that's up in the sky, high in the sky. So you would assume that was an attempt to contact extraterrestrial. Why not do that today? Put a video screen on the ground showing their craft or showing what we think they look like. If they're seeing that, then they understand, hey, they're trying to reach out, or they're trying to acknowledge our presence, and maybe we should take that next step. And but that's just thinking, right? Who can implement it?
Well, I mean, they could be whoever's out there, they could be already trying to bring about this contact. But there's, I think, certain things you'd want to have in place. First of all, you'd want to have that stock market stabilized, because right now that rules our world, right? Like the way that money flows, and the exchange and so on, all of that rules how life continues on Earth, right? Unfortunately. So that would be the first thing I'd take control of, is or at least provide a human government with the ability to stabilize that market no matter what happens. And if you notice, despite all the crap that's going on in the world right now, that market has really maintained its levels. I mean, it's dropped and dipped here and there, but it's back up to its levels. So something is stabilizing that market despite the chaos that's going on. Second thing is, when you introduce a new culture to a more primitive culture, I mean, there's inoculation. Like, so what kind of diseases do they carry, or do we carry that can infect them? So that's probably a concern. So there's, maybe they're already taking steps towards exposing themselves and making contact. So the slow drip recently, all the films and that preparatory work that happened the last 40, 50 years, maybe this is all leading up to a moment where they sort of announce themselves.
Do you really think that this economic model, this stock market, can maintain itself through disclosure? I just feel like, truthfully, I feel like that has to actually go away. The value of the dollar has to disappear in order for us to kind of redo what it is, the path that we're setting as human beings, and we have to figure out some other way of doing business or doing things. So truthfully, I feel like when disclosure hits, whether it's through slow drip or catastrophic disclosure, I think the stock market is a foregone thought. We wouldn't worry about the dollar anymore. And if you really think about it, the dollar is really no more valuable in reality than monopoly money. It's a piece of paper. And, economic disparity across the globe puts us in a situation where we can't ever come together. So it's like it keeps us separate and segregated, which is totally against the enlightenment of humanity. So I think it has to give, you know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah.
So with that being said, we're actually going into our last break of the night here. And I do want to get into, Canadians for disclosure, because I talked to Victor about this. And we have a lot of things, obviously, we've done here in the United States to move the needle forward as far as having conversations. And I always say, let that happen. I don't mind that it does. I think it would be cherry on top if governments ever do disclose something. And you guys are at the beginning stages of that. So I'd like to talk about that when we come back from the break. Guys, don't go anywhere. Last break with our guest here, Cate Chassé, on Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours radio show. We will see you right back. All right, we are clear. We are clear. We got 5 minutes. We're still live. If you have anything you need to do, Kate, this would be the time to do it for the chat. This is question time. So if we can get the questions coming in all caps, I'll go ahead and tag them. I know we have a few that I caught earlier. I may have missed some. So if I did, please repost those questions into the chat. And questions and also opinions. Let's open it up to opinions too, because I'd love to hear some of your opinions on what we've talked about here tonight. Also, for hour 3, we'll do the Steve Stockton Tells Untold Mr. Person Mysteries. We'll do the UFO and Weird News. And then I think I'm going to touch on the Hopkinsville Goblin. We'll go ahead and have a conversation about that, guys. So make sure you don't go anywhere. I will be here with you for hour 3. And let's see. Juliana McGill, there are theories that our timeline has been messed with certain unexplained storms before certain epic battles. Yeah, we talked about that last night. The list goes on. Missing characters off cereal boxes, you know, on the Mandela effect. Yeah, definitely. Let's see. Earl Orbs, what a great chat. Happy to be here. Yes, chat is awesome. These guys keep you on your toes here. Let's see. I can agree with this on some level, Dead Fish. If polygraphs didn't work, the government wouldn't rely on them like they do. Yeah, it's not admissible, but they've generally have been pretty right on. Juliana, I have 2 theories. The entities are selfish or waiting. We're just stuck here in the middle, spinning round and round like a record, baby. I can agree, Juliana. Let's see. Earl Orbs, big changes. BIG, yeah. It's wild because we're going to have to, you know, and it's like I want catastrophic disclosure, but I know that means we're going to go through a rough patch, a very, 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 very rough patch before we figure it out and are able to kind of restructure. It's scary. It's very scary to think about. You think about, I think you said Dune earlier, Mad Max, like this dystopian sort of type of world where, you know, I don't know. It's scary to think about, but the thing is that when you're restructuring or rebuilding something like humanity in the path of humanity, sometimes you have to go through moments like that. Historically, it says that we've been through moments like that, and we'll kind of have to do it again. Modern day, it's crazy to think about. See, Polly, did you step in? I do see you, Polly Rodderman. Polly, thanks for coming on in. Benno from Oz, appreciate you. Let's see. Kevin Kennedy, TMI, appreciate you coming in. Okay, I see your question, Jaquetta. Got it. I'll save that comment there, Juliana. Yes, could be possible. Flash 6. I mean, it could be this. I believe there will be people stealing TVs, even if the power grid is forever gone. Humans are irrational. We'll worry about our quote things to the bloody end. I can agree, man. And it's sad. Thing is that I'd rather do it or deal with it and go through it instead of leaving it for my great grandchildren, my grandchildren, all them, because someone's going to have to deal with it at some point. So let it be me and let it be us currently, so we could kind of, you know, set the stage for our descendants and hand them over a better situation than what we're dealing with here. All right, I got this here. Theories. On this one. Okay, yeah, I read that. Mm-mm-mm. Okay, we got about 30 seconds, guys. Coming back from break. Okay, 5 seconds. Here we go. All right, everyone, welcome back. Space Out Radio, the After Hours radio show. We are on the back half of hour number 2. We have about 20 minutes left with our guest here, Cate Chassé, as we are talking UFOs, UFO experiences. Where is disclosure going to take us? Catastrophic disclosure, disclosure, foyer, whichever one you want to choose here, as we get right back into the conversation. And we'll start off with the audience question here. I know we had Carrie Doyle asking Cate, when you saw these UFOs, did you feel anything spiritual or that they were trying to communicate with you?
No, not right away. But I did have a lot of spiritual dreams, and I still continue to have them. And it's made me really get into meditation. I've been doing a lot of the Monroe meditations and another type of meditation done by it's called Triad Mind by one of the sound engineers from Monroe. And that is really sort of I'm sort of starting to delve into that consciousness side of things. But that's, I think, more just trying to get to the bottom of what's going on in any way possible, right? So for the most part, I haven't felt direct spiritual feelings. Like when I saw that light being, it was more, it wasn't a spiritual feeling at first, you know. Like now I look back on it and I think, wow, that was pretty cool, and you know, it, you know, maybe that that is some sort of angelic type being or something, that sort of thing. But no, most of my spirituality, I think, comes more directly from that first experience when I was 6, and then many of the dreams that I've had, and then now recently a lot of the experiences I've had in meditation, or you know, right upon awakening, when you're in that very liminal state, I'll experience things.
All right. The Jaquetta is asking, what do you think about the book of Enoch being added back into the Bible and admitting the quote watchers being various aliens?
Hmm. Yeah, like I knew about the Book of Enoch and was sort of really into it probably back in the late 90s and stuff. But yeah, I really wonder about the Watchers. I really, you know, and I people talk about, so that the aliens are the angels from the Bible, but it's possible that there is some sort of like angelic realm out there, or you know, like a sort of a hierarchy of non corporeal beings that uh, you know, create our world, maintain our world, kind of like, you know, like the DMT elves and so on. It's like maybe there's elementals, like they talk about the Elohim being sort of like they some people refer them as a physical race. Others refer to them as like sort of elementals, sort of maintaining the integrity of our world, or the physical world in general. So I find that whole Book of Enoch, I really want to read it again, and because it's been years and I don't remember a lot of it, um, because the Watchers are definitely very intriguing.
Yeah, I need to do exactly the same. And thanks for the awesome super chat that did, man. Disclosure will not come from the government. It will come from we, the people. That is true. If we can keep ourselves together and not be so segregated, because even in this community, we all want to get to the truth, but there's still a lot of segregation even within our own community. So I'm with you, though. It definitely will come from we, the people. Um, Let's see. We had a question from Earl Orbs who said, Kate, what color were the lights in the football shaped craft? I missed it if you did say.
Yeah, they were red, yellow, green, blue in that order. And they didn't flash, they just stayed steady in those colors.
And how would you describe the because I was on Highway 101 in California driving at night. It was about 8:30 at night coming back here to Bakersfield, and you kind of have to cross through this little mountain pass. As I'm getting off the freeway in Salinas, I had this pretty huge sunroof, and I look up or I look up either to the right, and I see this what looks like almost like a quadcopter drone coming down, ascending down to my vehicle as I'm getting off the freeway. I'm going 70 miles an hour, and it had lights on each corner, and the lights were inside of a casing that was sort of I describe it like it looked like a sea urchin, but just crystal clear. And the light inside didn't shine, it glowed. It had like an inner glow. Is that the same sort of thing you experienced with that craft? Those lights not illuminating as far as, but
That's
they were
right.
like glowing inner glow.
Kind of an inner glow, yeah. And
Yeah,
and kind of muted. Um and like there was something like there was a film over it or something. Yeah.
yeah. But they wouldn't illuminate a room if they were in a
No.
room. They had a
No. Yeah,
see
yeah, yeah.
that's what and always try to explain that to people. They never understand. But
Hmm.
let me see here. Okay, and I think we had a couple of comments here. Juliana McGill, the story is now nuclear. The soul's being deactivated, so perhaps intervention is there? Question mark. But in the meantime, just be good to one another, and everything negative, say that's not our timeline. Awesome statement. We do agree with you there, Juliana McGill. Dropping knowledge as well. Let's see. I think I've always been there. Okay. All right. So we got that one. So let me shift in a little bit into the Canadians for Disclosure. You guys are at the beginning stages. It's like looking at us back here in the United States back in 2018 when it was just a dream that there were going to be hearings one day, and we did the footsteps, the footwork, grassroots efforts, had people sending emails to congressmen and senators to bring the attention to the subject. Finally, we had a hearing. Where are you guys at in the state in that process in Canada, and what are you doing within Canadians for Disclosure to try to kind of get that message out there to other Canadians?
Hmm. Well, that's we're at the point where we're trying to grow the group, and we really need to probably bring in some Canadian influencers to get our numbers up, because I think we have about 100 people now, and it's just not enough to make this something really monumental. So we really need to start growing our members and bringing in influencers who will talk about this, and then so once we have the members, I think we can start writing petitions, which is very helpful. Currently, we're writing letters to our members of parliament, and the next step we're going to do is we're going to write there's like a new science committee that's being formed, and they don't even have an agenda yet. And apparently, we can actually uh, petition ideas for them to add to their agenda. So we're going to write that team. I think there's about maybe 10 or 12 of them on this committee. And so we'll try to write letters to them and really get them talking about the topic, and if they can make it even a little bit more public, so the more of the public can provide input, would be great. And then there was a big it's called the Sky Canada Project report just came out. You might have seen that on Twitter, and it's been circulating a bit. And it's a very large report on the state of ufology, basically in Canada. And I think I mean, I actually haven't had a chance to read the report yet, but I think there's definitely an interest in the Canadian government. But right now, I find that the Canadian government is very focused, of course, on trade. Trade is a big issue right now because of the tariffs, and there's also two major wars going on, and so I think Canadian politicians are very distracted right now. But we're trying to bring it to the forefront, um, to get them to think about this. And right now, Parliament is in recess, probably like Congress is right now, right?
Mhm.
So when they get back in the fall, hopefully we'll really start pushing more. And then maybe with this new this thing coming up uh, uh, in Congress, isn't something coming up in September where there's going to be whistleblowers
I've
testifying
heard that. I've
or
heard
something?
that. Yeah. I don't know if this if it's solidified, but I've heard that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think September 10th or 12th or something. So what we're noticing is that the Canadian politicians are aware of the subject, and they've been down to meetings with, because we're part of the Five Eyes, so they know what's going on. They very clearly know what's going on, but they just don't share. They're even more tight about information, I think, than Americans are. And then we also had those Chinese quote balloons, and I think one or two were balloons, but there was one that wasn't a balloon, and it was shot down over Alaska, and they apparently couldn't retrieve it, which I find really unlikely.
Yeah, we know that they had, I think it was like 3 or 4 objects during that time. The spy balloon, obviously, everybody
Yep.
saw that, but then there were like 3 objects. They shot one down over the Yukon, I think, right?
Yukon, that's what it was. Yeah.
And apparently, I know at the time someone was saying it's just all ice out there. So if
Yeah.
something fell, you'd be able to see it. It wouldn't be any, deal trying to find it. So
Yeah.
we know they found it. We know they recovered it. So that would be Canadian government retrieving craft. Do you
hmm
think they hand that over to United States, or do you think they hold that somewhere in Canada?
I mean, if they hold it in Canada, it's in sort of, it's kind of like falls under some sort of Five Eyes or NORAD kind of uh agreement. So if we have it, which I doubt, but if we did, it would be probably controlled by the US to a certain degree.
Finding out, as I was talking to Victor as well, is just finding out the United States just has their hands in everybody's business. And
hmm
anytime there's a craft that goes down, we happen to always be right there, right on the spot. So obviously, the United States is probably taking it, anything that Canada has. But the thing that shocked me, and we were looking at when I talked to Victor last, is we were looking at documents. You guys in Canada have released a lot of UFO files
hmm
over the years that say flying saucer and all these things in the actual notes that were released. And it's just so strange that Canada wouldn't be more open to have the conversation when you have that sort that came directly from the government. That paperwork. What do you
Yeah.
think about that?
Well, I imagine they're under orders by the Americans, and I mean, we're allies, right? So we don't go spilling the beans on things if it's agreed upon. Let's say politicians agree upon that, we'll keep these secrets because we're working together. I mean, I know we have low Earth orbit satellites that watch uh, basically. I mean, you're looking for missiles or rogue satellites and so on, but also they could also be looking for UAPs. So that information, we're working in conjunction with the United States, so we're sharing constantly back and forth. And so those people that in the intelligence community in Canada aren't going to be spilling the beans because we've told our allies, no, we're going to keep those secrets and so on. And I think, the Americans kind of direct the Five Eyes, and with good reason in a way, because we relied on the Americans for our military protection. We don't have nuclear bombs in Canada. We don't really have a strong military anymore. We're building it, and we're ramping up our military and so on. But for years, I think we did depend on the United States. So they should have the lead in a way. I mean, I don't always agree with, obviously the decisions being made, but I can understand where it's coming from.
I was just about to say, it's a double-edged sword because, I'm here. It's beautiful that we have control of the situation, but then you look at who has control of the situation, and then it's like, well, it could be bad. It could definitely be bad. And when we look at this, I just feel like there isn't a moment, and when we talked about, as the viewer stated earlier, that the disclosure will only come from us. There's just too many reasons for the government just not to disclose. It's just too many reasons. The main thing, I think, is the power situation, where they are just afraid to lose power, which truthfully, when you look at it, is this, should we want to be under a power structure here on Earth? Like, what is your thought about? Have you ever thought about that? What is your thought about that?
Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, I'm a Trekker, so I'm into the Star Trek type universe. I grew up on that, so my idea is like no money, no money economy, like that. All our needs are met and endless energy. But I don't know if we're anywhere near that. And also a government structure that is, I guess, democratic, but I don't know. I think we're so caught up on. I honestly don't know if we can get ourselves out of the pickle we're in. I mean, when you look at our environment, we're greed driven. We're a people that are greed driven. I mean, it's that seems to rule everything. So I don't know if that can ever change.
I think a big problem is that, like, when you talk about politics and why this structure has to be removed, is because you have people who have been lifelong politicians who have lived in this their whole life. It's been handed down to them from their uncles who were politicians, and there's an agenda already there at play, and it's about money, and it's that will never, you can never uncorrupt that without taking that entire thing down and restructuring, because it should just be Cate as representative, someone who, because the mandate should be, the requirement should be that you care about the people. It should be the people first. It should be about the people. If it isn't about that, then you shouldn't be in that seat. If you're addressing anyone else's interests but the people, it shouldn't be a seat that you're in. And it would be a perfect world if it was already set up that way. But the thing is that, we happen to be lucky enough to live in a moment where we have an opportunity to kind of adjust that, because, as I said many times on the show before, there's only a few situations or scenarios that could ever take place that would allow us to have that moment. And it would be UFO disclosure. It would be an asteroid impact, or it'd be something like a nuclear war. Those last two things aren't good for the population of humanity. So the thing that we're dealing with right now that could be beneficial to us would be the UFO disclosure, and which is why it's so important that we get to that finish line, which means if it comes through us, we have to find this moment where we all get together, as we talked about earlier. If you have anything to add to that, we have a few minutes left here.
Yeah, I just always go back to Richard Dolan's concept that we're heading towards this type of control system where, like, everything's going to get locked down, and now's our opportunity to make these moves. It almost requires a revolution, and it has to happen now, because 10 years from now everything's going to get locked down. There'll be no border movement. I mean, when you talk about what's that new company by Thiel, they're the control where they're using cameras and monitoring people and controlling movements over borders and so on. It's already happening,
Mm-hmm.
right? Try getting into the States right now. Even if you're an American, I have a friend who came into the States or tried to and got turned back, and she's a dual citizen.
Wow.
So there, like that control system, if it gets locked down, Palantir is the name of the company.
Yeah.
That company. So if the world gets locked down like that, there might not be any movement at all, and there's going to be no, disclosure or anything. It's got to happen now.
Woo, when you put it like that, I mean, it's definitely very important. And it's like I said, it's what energizes me. It's what makes me want to get up and do these shows and have these conversations to move the needle, because we have to find a way to get to where it is that we're talking about. And yeah, it's going to be a rough patch. Yeah, it's going to be, who knows, years of us being taken back in time as far as, some of the, it's going to be crazy, but it's something that we have to do. And the thing is, we'll go down in history books as just, part of the moment and part of the conversation that drove us or took us to wherever it is we're going to eventually get to. So that's why I love having these conversations here. And what I would like to do, because we have about 2 minutes left, if you wouldn't mind telling everybody where they can find you and where they can pick up on some of your work.
Okay, well, as far as Canadians for Disclosure, we have a new website. So it's CanadiansForDisclosure.org. I can be found on Twitter is the best place, but Facebook as well. So my Twitter handle is Cate_Chassé. And we also, the Canadians for Disclosure have a Twitter handle as well. It's Canada UAP. Yeah, and I'm on Facebook. I think I'm the only Cate Chassé on Facebook. So, send me a friend request.
And also, I'd love to hear about, if you could, talking because the X Spaces, I haven't really gotten into that. I've actually only participated in one or two, and just as a listener, I never got on stage and talked. But you do this one called Beyond Being Human X Space. Is this something that you consistently do, and kind of what happens there? What can someone expect?
So I actually just curate their feed, meaning I post for them.
Okay.
Just to increase engagement. But Beyond Being Human is a website, and he's an experiencer himself, and he's just trying to move this topic forward as like everybody else. So
okay,
yeah.
Well, like I said, that when I know you probably remember coming in, being one of the newer people to the subject like myself, there was a time when this community was at odds with each other. There was a lot of infighting going on within this community, which is crazy because we're all trying to get to the same goal. I'm glad that's gone away. And I kind of stepped in when I stepped in, that was still a thing. And I was like, let me be the person to kind of bridge the gap, bring everybody together. You shouldn't be at odds with each other. That's what they want. They want us doing that. So we don't focus on what it is that we need to do. And I'm just here to kind of bring us all together. So I would love to reach out to you again, Cate, and have another discussion. And let's keep moving the needle and getting this conversation going.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. I'd love to come back. And thank you so much for having me this time.
No problem at all, Cate. Pleasure. Thanks for coming in. Enjoy the rest of your night. We will talk soon.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.
Bye, everybody.
Care. All right, guys. Cate Chassé right here in the building on Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours radio show. We continuously have conversations that move the needle. Once again, I think this one achieved that, as well as want to make sure that our listeners know that you can put out requests for certain guests that you think would have a great conversation and would move the needle. Let me know on Facebook or on X. Hit me up and let me know. Other than that, we'll be right back right after this break.
That move the needle.
Don't go anywhere.
That move the needle.
You're listening to After Hours with Mr. Rob G on the only place where you can own the night. Spaced Out Radio.
Spaced Out Radio. You've tuned your dial to the right frequency.
See you in 5. All right, everybody. Welcome back. Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours radio show. We are now in After Hour number 3 with me, your host, Mr. Rob G. We're coming back from radio in about 15 seconds. We'll get into some Steve Stockton Tales Untold Missing Person Mysteries. And let me get it set up here. 5 seconds. All right, everybody, welcome back. Spaced Out Radio, After Hours radio show. We are in the third and final hour here. We want to thank our guest, Cate Chassé, for stepping in and talking UFOs. She's a UFO researcher. She talked about her UFO sightings. If you missed any of that conversation, I'd say hop in the archive because it doesn't cost you anything. Free, FREE, youtube.com/at Spaced Out Radio, as we get ready to jump into the third and final hour. And we're going to go ahead and get that going with a little bit of Steve Stockton, Tales Untold Missing Person Mysteries. Also, we'll get in some UFO and weird news as well. We do appreciate Steve Stockton being a part of the show as always. Here we go.
Welcome to Tales Untold and Missing Persons Mysteries on Spaced Out Radio's After Hours. My name is Steve Stockton, and I'm here to take you on a journey of mysteries, legends, and true stories. Come, join me on this strange adventure of Tales Untold and Missing Person Mysteries. Charles Ashmore lived in the town of Troy in New York State, United States, with his wife, mother, and minor son who was 16 years old and his 2 adult daughters. Now, the family was very wealthy and respectable members of their community. Depending on who you ask, either in the year 1871 or 1872, the Ashmores moved from Troy, New York, to Richmond, Indiana. And 2 years later, Charles bought a farm in nearby Quincy, which he and his family settled on. Right next to their farmhouse, there was a creek, which brought the family their fresh, cold spring water, no matter what the season. Around 9 o'clock on this particular evening, the night of November 9th, 1878, while the family all sat by the fire after supper, either conversing or possibly reading a book as a family or some type of entertainment that happened in the late 1800s, Charles Ashmore Jr. got up from the fire, and for the family, he was going to fetch himself a bit of water from the creek. He grabbed a clean tin can from the kitchen and walked out of the house. After waiting a very long time for the younger Charles to return from the stream, the elder Charles, his father, took the oldest daughter, Martha, with him, lit a lantern, and went off in search of the young man. It was early November, and a light snow had fallen outside, and though it lent greatly to the terrible cold both Martha and Charles Sr. felt right down to their very bones, it didn't deter them. It seemed the snow was a blessing in disguise, however, as in its light dusting, all along the ground it formed a path which showed the footprints of 16-year-old Charles Ashmore Jr. Father and daughter team dutifully followed the path the entire time, calling out the young man's name. All to no avail, as there was no returned response, and the tracks led to nowhere. Literally, they led nowhere. The footprints of the young Charles Ashmore Jr. stopped in the middle of the way from the house to the stream. The snow was undisturbed after they had walked about 75 feet, halfway from their front door to the creek where they got their water. Now, as this came to the father's attention, he silenced his daughter and calmly held out his lantern into the darkness of the night. They decided to walk around the last few footprints in order, if nothing else, to preserve them for further investigation. You can only imagine the stars shining as bright as they can, only late at night on a farm out in the middle of nowhere, full of fresh air. The sky is dark as an abyss. They made their way around these footprints and then onto the creek. Now, as they approached the creek, it's said that all the strength was immediately drained from young Martha Ashmore, and the same can be said for the air in her father's lungs when they chanced upon what they saw next. The creek was frozen over, and had been for some time. It was covered even by the fresh snow that was falling from the frigid, cold skies above. There was no sign that the younger Ashmore male had been there. There was no evidence that anyone had been there. In fact, at least not since the creek had frozen and the snow had started to fall. The next morning brought with it not only the warmth of the sun, but also more heartbreak to an already devastated mother and confused family. There had still been no sign or word from the family's only son hours later. It's like he was here 1 minute, he went to get water, and then poof, gone. 4 days passed, and nothing had changed except the melting of the snow. Miss Ashmore, Charles Jr.'s mother, had went to the creek to fetch herself some water. No one was around at that time to get it for, as they had been previously. She had been hesitant to leave the house and go near where her son had gone missing. Today, though, it was unavoidable if she wanted a drink. But the closer she got to the creek, the faster her heart began to beat. About halfway there, in fact, right around the same area where the last footprints of her son were seen, even though they had been washed away by the elements of the melting snow, she began to hear Charles Jr.'s voice calling for help.
Help me.
As sure as a mother could be, not just of what she was hearing, but of what she was feeling as well. Her mother's intuition, you might call it. She was sure of it. Her son was right there near the creek, and though she couldn't yet see him, she could hear him very well, calling out for help.
Help me.
It seemed, however, that the closer she got to the creek, the stranger things became. As she called out to her son again and again, and then silenced herself to listen from which direction his cries were coming from, it suddenly seemed like they were coming from everywhere all at once,
Help me.
but somehow also from nowhere, as she still couldn't see him. Not a single sign of him. Finally, the woman ran home as fast as her legs could carry her to wait for her husband to get home so she could tell him what she'd heard. Now, she was obviously very confused and nervous. After all, she had just heard the voice of her son calling to her for help, yet couldn't figure out where the voice was coming from. Actually, was he calling for help? Was he there at all? When questioned later on about what she'd heard and experienced, all of which was chalked up to a delirious woman, unfortunately a common diagnosis at the time, this was a mother who was so heartbroken over the loss of her only son and youngest child that she had gone momentarily mad, hallucinating that she had heard him calling to her. Now, this opinion was further backed up, at least by some, as when she was asked what she heard, she exclaimed that she wasn't sure of what her son was actually saying, other than that he was actually calling for her. She had stated that his words were entirely clear. She heard them as though he were standing right next to her, yet she also remembered not understanding what those words were, strangely. Was something supernatural going on here? Now, in the next few months, with no discernible pattern, other members of the family would, at random times, hear the voice of young Charles Ashmore Jr. calling out for help. Though the voice always seemed to be coming near the creek where he had seemingly disappeared, the closer they got to the voice, the farther away it seemed to move until, by all appearances, it blinked right out of existence. Again, this fell in line with what the mother claimed to have experienced. One thing each person in the family who heard the voice knew for absolute certain, however, is that the voice they were hearing was definitely that of the younger Ashmore. And again, no one was ever able to repeat what he had said, for though they claim his voice was so clear, it was as if he were standing right there. At the same time, it had still been too far away for them to understand the words. Even if he had been giving directions to his family wasn't able to comprehend them. No, this sounds strange. The sounds of help calling from the creek went on intermittently through the rest of the winter and spring, and would seemingly pick a family member at random to experience this and hear these words. Come summer, though, the calling voice seemed to come at further and further intervals, until finally, at the point of around about a year later, it stopped altogether. Charles Ashmore Jr. was never seen or heard from again, and no one was ever able to say exactly what had happened to him. No one even had a reasonable idea as to who or what the culprit could have been. So there was no choice but for the family to move on, with a devastating loss not only to their family unit, but to their very hearts and souls. Now, in the magazine Fate, in June of 1953, a very similar disappearance story was published. Depending on who you ask, you'll hear people swear to the truth of the legend, and still others will attest the story has been thoroughly debunked. Whatever you choose to believe about what happened to David Lang and his family, whether it be a well-written story which originated in the late 1800s, or a true account of something that really happened to a man in the same time period, I hope we can all certainly agree we are hearing more and more true stories just like this in modern times. In Fate magazine, the article was called How My Father Disappeared, and was allegedly taken straight from an interview with the daughter of the man who was said to have vanished into thin air. Now, she was a witness to the strange happenings that day and the days to come. Her name was Sarah Lang, and the story of her father disappearing mid-step right in front of her very eyes is one of legend, whether true or not. This is what she allegedly told the journalist interviewing her. On September 23rd, 1880, a farmer named David Lang was walking through a field not far from his house. His two young children, George and the aforementioned Sarah, played in the courtyard between where their mother, his wife, stood on the porch and where he, their father, was walking in the field. Right at this moment in time, two men, a lawyer named Judge August Peck and his brother-in-law, whose name has since been lost in the mists of time and retelling, were approaching the house in a horse-drawn vehicle. All at once, David Lang's wife dropped what she had in her hands and screamed, while the two men in the buggy stopped, open-mouthed, and astonished at what they'd just seen. Children also froze in shock and terror. Right before no fewer than 5 sets of eyes, which were almost exclusively on him, David Lang disappeared into thin air in mid-step right off the face of the earth. Despite there being a very intense search, no trace of him was ever found. There were no holes, no wells, no place that a man could have disappeared. However, it's said for years after this unexplained and terrifying incident, the family, the children in particular, would hear the voice of their father calling out for help. Though his words seemed to be clear, they were indiscernible, and the children nor anyone else who heard these intermittent cries could ever make out exactly what David was trying to say. A few years later, a circle with a diameter of about 15 feet appeared, seemingly out of nowhere, on the exact same spot where David is said to have taken his last steps here on Earth as we know it. He was never seen again, and just as quickly as the voices started manifesting, they abruptly stopped, and he was never heard from again either. Some people believe that the inability to corroborate any details in the Lang story is the reason so many still consider it to be just a retelling of an old fiction story written by popular author Ambrose Bierce back in the day. While the story itself is unreliable, with no record even of a David Lang or a Judge Peck anywhere in the county of Sumner, the similarities in the above cases is undeniable, however, and the Ashmores did exist and young Christian did go missing. It's a matter of historical record. As far as the details, though, who knows? So could each of these men have crossed perhaps into an alternate dimension? Is this why their voices were seemingly heard right in front of multiple witnesses? It's clear as day at first, until they finally couldn't be heard anymore or understood. It's hard to disassemble facts and evidence in cases which took place so long ago. Many witnesses have long since perished, and records had a way of being destroyed throughout history, purposely or not. Example, in Fentress County, where my father is from, the courthouse was burned during the Civil War, with lots of marriage and death records and tax records and deeds perishing with the fire. So in those cases, there's nothing left for posterity before the Civil War. As bizarre as it is for someone to seemingly vanish without a trace, it's even more strange and even somewhat terrifying, especially to those of us in the paranormal community who are somewhat aware and think we may have some answers or at least theories as to what's happening in some of these cases, for this to happen to someone in clear and full view of other people. Not only does it seem, in most of these cases, that the person couldn't have possibly gotten far, but it's absolutely impossible for them to have gone anywhere without someone else seeing where they went. As we on this channel know and have come to understand, this seems to happen a lot. Many cases have been sprouting up in recent years as well, leading us to try and come up with our own conclusions, hypotheses, and even just our own opinions as to what in the world is happening. Not only here, but other places in the world, if it's in fact in this world and not some sort of alternate reality, Where are these people going to? I'd like to close now with one of the earliest and most well-known accounts of what I like to call unconscious extinction. In the late 1760s, in a small English town named Shepton Mallet, there lived a man in his late 70s who by all accounts was crippled with an unknown disease. He was a retired farmer, and his name was Owen Parfit. Owen was completely unable to get around without help, and usually this help was given to him by his elderly sister, who was also his primary caregiver. Now, this unnamed sister apparently was a very good caregiver and seemed to all who knew her to love her brother very much and who took much joy in caring for him. So, because of his disability and inability to do anything on his own, Owen spent most of his days bedridden, but some were actually spent with him enjoying one of his favorite pastimes. He simply loved to sit outside of the doorway of his home, which he shared with his sister. One very chilly and possibly rainy day, Owen was sitting with a light jacket draped over him in his usual spot by the door outside of his house, while his sister/caregiver was keeping a sporadic eye on him while also trying to get some chores around the house accomplished. Owen's sister went outside to bring him inside for lunch, but what she found was an empty chair with the jacket draped over it. At first, Owen's sister thought perhaps a neighbor had happened by and saw Owen, who maybe asked to be brought in, and maybe she hadn't heard him calling her. You see, Owen was entirely unable to move around on his own, so it would never have occurred to her that that's what he did. She searched the entire house, all the surrounding property, and then asked the neighbors, but to no avail. Owen was nowhere to be found, and no one had seen him. The neighbors did confirm that they had seen Owen sitting in his usual spot by the door in front of the house all day long, just as his sister had said. They had seen the light jacket draped over him as well. Although an investigation was conducted by the authorities at the time, to this day, no trace of Evan Parfit has ever been found. Now, where did this man go? He wasn't able to move on his own. People observed him sitting on his porch with a jacket on, and then in the twinkling of an eye, the jacket's there, Evan's gone, never to be seen again. Very strange indeed. Well, there you have it. What do you make of these strange historical cases of people going missing from farms, some almost 200 years ago? I'd love to hear your comments and opinions, but I do remind you to please be respectful to the opinions of others. Till we meet again, I'm Steve Stockton, and I'll talk to you next time.
All right, that is Steve Stockton, Tales Untold Missing Person Mysteries. Knocks it out of the park every single time. Guys, make sure that you go show some love over on Steve Stockton's channel, which is Tales Untold, and then also Missing Person Mysteries. A lot of awesome tales there. And just keep in mind, though, these aren't just stories. These are definitely individuals that have gone missing, unfortunately, and in most cases have not come back. So awesome to keep their thoughts going, and just an awesome thing to do, Steve Stockton. So with that being said, we got about 5 minutes here until we go into our final break. I do have something that I want to do after the break. Roger Murray, one of our viewers here, brought up the anniversary of the Hopkinsville Goblin being essentially right in this time frame. So I wanted to cover it because I have a theory behind the extraterrestrials involved in that scenario. We'll actually go back and kind of go through the case itself, a little history lesson, UFO history lesson, and then we'll talk about how those things might link into this other story. So without spoiling it, some of you guys probably already know where I'm going with that. Some of you don't. But I think it'd be awesome to go ahead and look into that. So we'll do that, and we'll get into some UFO and weird news as well to close out the show and close out the weekend. But for the last few minutes here before we go to break, just kind of, reflecting on the conversation that we had today with our guest once again, Cate Chassé. You definitely want to make sure you follow her on her social platforms. We've had those things posted in the chat here tonight. Also, you can find them in the description of the show. So go and show some love. But, you know, when we get to having this conversation, and she brought up, you know, her perspective is a lot like mine as far as coming into this field within the last 10 years, essentially. You know, kind of jumping right into the historical aspect and absorbing everything that I could on the subject when I came in. Sounds like she did the same thing, but the, you know, one of the people she mentioned, Richard Dolan, which hopefully I get to interview Richard Dolan on the show. I know he has this whole team that takes you know, his requests, but if Richard is watching this show, if anybody that knows Dolan is watching this show, send the link over to him and let him know that we'd love to have him on to have a real deep conversation about post disclosure or after disclosure, which just so happens to be one of the books that he co-authored with Bryce Zabel. And I guess now they're doing a show together with Need to Know, which is actually pretty cool to be able to see that, the history that they have with each other. And, you know, just really the focus, which should be, what do we do once disclosure gets here? Like, what is the plan, right? Everybody's like, disclosure. What's the plan once it gets here? If it landed on your lap tomorrow, then what? A lot of these, when I look in, and that's, I think what separates what we do from a lot of the community is that the outlook is not just talking about an interesting subject and getting to, but it's actually like, what is the plan? Like, what can we do as far as you and I and us getting together, and, you know, other channels that do the same exact thing, and how could we all come together? What does that plan look like? Is there something we could put together? You know, all egos put aside, right? Because everybody wants to be the person that runs their audience, and this is my audience, and it shouldn't be like that, especially in the community that we're in, because we're all in it for the same purpose. So there shouldn't be these segregated little camps of different individuals that are only watching this particular show host, and vice versa. There shouldn't be these show hosts out there that are worried about, oh, this is my community. And it's not what this is about. This is about humanity. This is bigger than anyone's ego, and anyone that wants to segregate and call their audience, right? This is bigger than it will never work as long as we stay segregated in that way. So we got to figure out a way to, and I propose some things, like maybe we get with these show hosts, maybe all the show hosts get together, and we, you know, maybe come together for one show where everyone's audience is tuned in, right? And where everyone gets to have the conversation and gets to be part of putting the plan together. Because I just don't see a lot of channels focused on the whole, what do we do once disclosure hits? I think disclosure is like a tagline. It's a line that people say, not really understanding what the gravity of it is and what is going to entail for us to kind of actually first get there. And then what do we do afterwards, right? People have different ideas of what it looks like on the other side of disclosure. I'm under the feeling that, you know, it's a moment in time for human beings to be able to determine if they want to continue with the same old same that we've been dealing with this whole time, which I don't think we would, because they've been keeping secrets for the last 80 years about UFOs and about so many other different things that are important, and if found out, maybe even appalling to a lot of people out there. And do we want to continue with that? Probably not, right? Do we want to focus on a dollar that ensures disparities in how people are able to live life and if they're comfortable or not, right? These are a lot of things that can be rectified and taken care of within, you know, by having one of these conversations in a moment that we probably won't have again for another few millennia. We're going to get into more conversation, though, right after this break. So important that we do this. And we will come back with the Hopkinsville ET, some UFO and weird news after the break. And, you know, just kind of get your brain thinking. Come back. Make sure you come right back after the break. 5 minutes right here. Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours Radio Show. See you back here in a moment. All right, we are clear. We are clear. Once again, we definitely want to thank our guest tonight, Cate Chassé, for stepping in and sitting in the seat and having another tough conversation. Once again, if you guys have any thoughts of anybody that you think would be a great a person to have a conversation with, make sure you let me know. Send it to either after hours at spacedoutradio.com, or you can hit me up on Facebook. You can hit me up on X, but I'm looking for those intellectual conversations. I'm looking for ones that really move the needle. So definitely let me know. And if you know the person, like Dolan, right? There's somebody out there who knows Dolan. Let Dolan personally know that we love to have him on the show. Same thing with any other people that you'd love to see on the show. Let them know that it would be cool to see them on the After Hours Radio Show. So we got about 3.5 minutes here before we come back from break. Want to thank our super chatters for tonight. Know we had a couple come in. Mel WD40 who got it going earlier, saying happy birthday to Flat Six, and then the Dead Man who came in and dropped 2 super chats here, saying disclosure will not come from the government; it will come from we the people. And then a second comment stating, in my opinion, when they try to discredit people, that's when you're over the target, like Rush and Lazar. Yeah, I can agree with that. You know, one of the main things is about us getting together and getting to the point to where we're, unified is the word I'm looking for, where we're unified as one and we can move forward. That's a scary day for the powers that be. And anytime it looks like it's going that way, that's when they'll figure out another way to keep us going at each other, right? That's what politics are. Politics are a huge distraction. It makes you stand on this side because you're a Republican or I'm a Republican or whoever, right? They want to split you and put you on a side. You're either on this side or that side. And because you're on this side or that side, then you don't like those other people. So there should never be a time you should sit down and talk to those people and vice versa. And that's how they keep us away from unifying, man, and realizing who we are and what we are. So don't fall for the distraction. Don't fall for it. And we will be right back here in about 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes. Also, while we have the time, if you wouldn't mind taking a moment, looking right under your screen, if you're on YouTube, there should be a thumbs up, thumbs down button. Please go ahead and hit that. Let us know if you like to dislike the show. Also, if you're watching from X, like I know some of you are, like Dookie Pickles. Where's Dookie Pickles tonight? I know Dookie Pickles watches from X. Maybe we'll get Dookie Pickles to chime in the chat here tonight. And I just love saying that name, right? And always showing support from X. If you're on X, go ahead and hit that little heart button and let us know if you like the show or not. That's right. Paramore has the right idea. And yeah, Paramore. I listened to the last night's show while I was on the highway today. Great guest, but I was yelling at my phone a couple times. But I think he was intellectually honest. Right. Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about. And We got about 30 seconds here. All right, we got about 15 seconds coming back from break here, and let's get ready to go. Guess we'll do this under. All right, here we go. All right, everybody, welcome back. Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours radio show, after hour number 3, back half of the third hour, the final hour. 20-some odd minutes left before we shut this thing down for the night. Already it's going by fast. Make sure if you missed our guest tonight, Cate Chassé, jump in the archive, 100% free, and catch up on what you missed as we go ahead and jump back into the conversation here. I think what I'll do is go ahead and put this under the. We'll put it under a UFO report and talk about this Hopkinsville extraterrestrial. So let's go ahead and do that right about now. All right. We'll go with the UFO reports. What we'll call it here tonight as we go ahead and talk about something that anniversary who just came up on us here. So let me see. This is going to be 50, so 70 years coming up here on August 21st, which is when the event began. It ran through the night of August 21st to the 22nd, 1955. That happens to be the Hopkinsville Goblin, or the Hopkinsville UFO sighting, whatever you want to call it. There was an event that happened back in the 50s, and it's one of the more peculiar cases. And I don't actually have the alien timeline with me right now, but there was, if you looked on the alien timeline, essentially what it is Joe Nichols' alien timeline is what it's called. And it just has images or depictions, drawings of different extraterrestrials that have been reported over the years. So starting back in at Roswell and going forward, different types of extraterrestrial events that happened, they drew an image of what these beings look like. So I'm going to go ahead and read the story. This way we can kind of come to what this actually is. And actually, let me put it back on stage here. So this would be the Hopkinsville, Kentucky. This is the newspaper from the morning after, where it says right there on the front page, little small section, but it says story of spaceship. 12 little men probed today. Kentucky farmhouse scene of alleged raid by strange crew last night. Reports say bullets failed to affect visitors. And that sounds bananas. If you don't recall, if you don't know this sighting, then definitely tune in, because we're going to go over this here. And I'm just going to read this from the Wikipedia page for this, because it seems to have more of the actual details of what happened that night all in one place. So we'll go ahead and read from there. So the Kelly Hopkinsville encounter, also known as the Hopkinsville Goblins case or the Kelly Greenman case, is a claimed close encounter with extraterrestrial beings that occurred near the communities of Kelly and Hopkinsville in Christian County, Kentucky, during the night and early morning of August 21st through 22nd, 1955. Ufologists regard it as one of the most significant and well-documented cases in the history of UFO incidents, while skeptics maintain there was no actual physical evidence that the encounter ever took place, and the reports were due to, quote, the effects of excitement and misidentification of natural phenomena such as meteors and owls. right? As bananas as that sounds, we're going to go ahead and get into why they even thought that that would be the case. The alleged encounter was officially classified as a hoax in the Project Blue Book files by the United States Air Force. Psychologists have used the alleged incident as an academic example of pseudoscience to help students distinguish truth from fiction. So the claims are, on the evening of August 21st, 1955, 5 adults and 7 children arrived at the Hopkinsville police station claiming that small alien creatures from the spaceship had been attacking their farmhouse and that they had been holding them off with gunfire for nearly 4 hours. 2 of the adults, Elmer Sutton and Billy Ray Taylor, claimed they had been shooting a few short, dark figures who repeatedly popped up at the doorway and peered into the windows. The Kentucky New Era, the first paper to report the incident, increased the number of creatures from 12 to 15 and continues to be the number most often reported. So this was one of the cases where I think I talked about this maybe yesterday for a moment, where this is one of the cases where the extraterrestrials couldn't just materialize into the home, right? They could not just materialize into the home. They actually were peering through the windows and doors, attempting to try to get through the windows and doors, and could not do so. So I thought that was a unique characteristic, because when we hear about any sort of UFO or extraterrestrial encounter, usually they say they can just materialize right in the room. For whatever reason, these ones weren't able to do that. So you have to ask yourself, it's just something to key in on. And that's essentially what we did here. So the residents of the farmhouse, actually, concerned about a possible gun battle between local citizens, 4 city police officers, 5 state troopers, 3 deputy sheriffs, and 4 military police from nearby United States Army Fort Campbell drove to the Sutton farmhouse located near the town of Kelly in Christian County. The search yielded no evidence apart from broken windows and holes in the screen, possibly as a result of gunfire. So let me see here. Residents of the farmhouse included Glennie Lankford, her children Lonnie, Charlton, and Mary, 2 grown sons from a previous marriage, Elmer Lucky Sutton, John Charlie, or J.C. Sutton, their respective wives, Vera and Aline, Aline's brother, O.P. Baker, and Billy Ray Taylor and his wife, June. Both the Taylors, Lucky and Vera Sutton, were reportedly itinerant carnival workers who were visiting the farmhouse when officers returned the next day. They found the house empty. Neighbors informed them that the families had, quote, picked up and left after claiming the creatures had returned about 3:30 in the morning. The family's claim received widespread coverage in local and national press. Early articles did not refer to little green men. The color was later added to some newspaper stories. Estimates of the size of the alleged creatures varied from 2 to 4 feet, or 61 to 122 centimeters for the Canadian audience out there. Details such as large pointed ears, claw-like hands, and eyes that glowed yellow, and spindly legs later appeared in various media. And so we have, these are some of the gentlemen who actually reported this, kind of describing what actually happened. This is original photo from 1955 from the event, or from, the reporting of the event. Also, this was one of the descriptions that they had laid out originally back then. So just look at this, right? Like and for the radio audience, we're looking at a drawing of the Hopkinsville, Kentucky Goblin, which happened to be, this 2 to 4 foot being. It was silver in color from what I understand, and had big ears. That was another thing that stuck out to me. And as I was interested in this case a while back, it was the big ears. Like, when have you ever heard extraterrestrials with big ears, right? Not often, not common. Also, extraterrestrials that could not just materialize into your existence, right? It's just something you don't hear. So these are two things that I keyed in on as unique as far as, you know, historical cases of extraterrestrial encounters go. And I think it's important just to remember. So we'll kind of continue the story here. I'm just see if I can read this here. Gary F. Helson, from witnesses description, probably tailors, let's see, many details questionable, especially the bent knee. These drawings also said to have been shown to WALAC TV in Nashville, Tennessee. So this is what they were depicted as. This is an image of what actually supposedly took place. I thought it was going to go over the actual full story of this here, but apparently the one of the gentlemen on the property, just to kind of paraphrase and give you a synopsis, one of the gentlemen was chopping wood or something on the night of the 21st of August 1955, saw this craft go overhead, which reminded me of the one that Kate talked about earlier, which was this craft with lights all the way around it, that had flashing lights going all the way around it. Apparently the gentleman saw this go over the treetop, which there's trees lining the property. So he saw this craft go over the treetop. Then after a while, all of a sudden, these things started coming out of the woods, as depicted on this image here. These 4-foot tall beings that seemed to be shining. They were silver. They had these big eyes, and they had these huge ears, and they were approaching with their hands above their head, right, with these claws. And just keep an eye on what we're looking at here. Long arms, right? They were long arms, claws, big ears, about 4 feet tall. They were silver and approaching them. So they went in the house. Apparently, these things were approaching the front of the property. There were many numbers of these things. They were climbing up on the roof. At one point, one of the gentlemen went outside and reported that one of these things was on the roof, reached down and grabbed his hair, right? And so he ran back in the house. They're shooting at these things all night. A lot of gunfire. When they would hit these things, or when you would, they're shooting directly at the beans, and the beans would get hit and then do a backflip and then land on their feet. They were kind of floating the entire time and then retreat into the forest. And so this is going on. This is a battle back and forth all night where they're fighting off these things. And then apparently it died down around 2-3 in the morning. And they were all up. They were all scared. They all ran to the car at one time and drove into town, which is when they talked to the police, as we started this story earlier. So the police came back with them to the property. The newspapers came out the next day. Investigators came out, and, they could see the gunshots apparently, but they couldn't find any other evidence, is what they're saying. But I think this is one, this case is unique because there was a case that or I don't know if you call it a case, but there was a report of what a lady stated was an extraterrestrial being back in 2019 in La Junta, Colorado. And I've shown this one before, and I don't know if I actually have the image here. Let me see if I can bring it up online here. But there was an encounter, or not even an encounter because it all happened on Ring camera, but there was what they called the Dobby extraterrestrial. Now, people who have watched any show that I've done here know I bring Dobby up often, and it's because I feel like it's potentially, one of the only footage that we have of potentially something not from Earth walking on the surface of Earth. I'm going to show you this video. And so for the radio audience, this is a video. If you type in Dobby, Dobby, alien, you're going to see this video. And I'm just going to show this to our YouTube audience to kind of paint the picture here. So we have the as you see on the screen here. And I've showed this to other people before. They're like, no, I don't see what you're seeing. And maybe some of you will say the same thing tonight. However, just come into it with an open mind, right? Okay. So keep in mind, these beings could not just get through into the house. They could not materialize. They had to be physically let in. They were going to the windows. They were trying to get inside the doors and could not get through, right? These are short beings, silver, big ears. The only type of extraterrestrials you ever heard of reportedly having big ears. Usually they have no ears, or they have little slits where the ears would be, right? That's normally what you hear. So these could not be extraterrestrial at all. These could be along the lines of cryptids. Who knows? They call them the Hopkinsville Goblin. They could simply be cryptids. But this is what, let me see if I can bring this up here. This is what I think they could be. Not saying they are. There's a lot of things that point to this here. So let me go ahead and get this up for you guys here. And I know it's probably going to try to play a commercial here. Okay, good. All right. Let me go ahead and play this here for you guys.
Just about 4:45, and take a look at this viral video from La Junta in southeastern Colorado. All right, Vivian Gomez wrote on Facebook that her security camera captured this on Sunday morning. There are people on Facebook who say it looks like Dobby from Harry Potter, or a ghost or an alien, or a...
Okay, so the reason why I'm even connecting, I did this a few years ago. It's like these two things line up too much. I looked into this case here. Nothing debunked this case. There was nothing out there that solidified that this was not some human being walking around. It's too skinny. If you look at the proportion legs, right? Crazy. Focus on the ears, right? So assuming this is fully something not from Earth, look at the big ears. Look at the floppy ears. As I'll go ahead and let the film play.
Hidden flip-flops and underwear. Let
me go back a little bit. Look at the uniform silver color, right? About 4 feet tall, roughly.
From Harry Potter, or a ghost or an alien, or a kid in flip-flops and underwear.
All right. Could not get in the house. That was the other part that I'd looked at, right? So they say, oh, no, as a kid, he's coming out of the house. Or no, what it appeared to be was whatever this is trying to get into the house and was not able to. So is walking back down the driveway at this point. It fits the description of the Hopkinsville Goblin, and is just, hey, maybe it's the same thing. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's something totally different. It exhibits the same behaviors. And if you take this video frame by frame, there are frames where you can see the arms on whatever this is are pretty long. They hang way down past the crotch, and there are some frames where they look like potentially they could be claws. Are these the same things? I'm not saying that they are. I'm just saying that there are a lot of similarities too. And if this turned out to be something that was not human, there's a lot of things that points to it not being human. I think most people agree, even the skeptics that looked into trying to originally debunk this video, they all agree that the thing you're seeing in the film is there, that it's not something that was added later, that whatever this is definitely in the video. It's just about what it is. Some they say they think it's a kid with underwear on his head. I don't think that that's the case. If it was, you'd be able to tell that. There'd be so many ways you could tell that. It doesn't appear to be that in this video. A lot of people feel different ways about it. But if you take whatever this is, the description of whatever this is, and you weigh it against the Hopkinsville Goblin story and the description, once again, if I can bring that back to the stage here, it's just very similar. Let me see if I can bring this, just kind of toggle back and forth here. These two things are very, very similar. So I'm going to read this here if I can. Let me see here. Is there a world where you could see similarities in these two things? Is there a world? Right. A locked door stumped them is what I would think. I would think it trying to get in, right? If you go back to the Hopkinsville story, they tried to get in all night long for hours. These things attempted to come through the windows. They tried to come through the front door. The point is they physically needed to be let in, right? They apparently didn't have the ability to materialize inside the home, and the family dealt with these things all night long. The description and them being the only things that I was able to find, as far as, extraterrestrial in the descriptions that had ears, because when I first saw this case, I didn't know about Hopkinsville, and I'm like, I've never heard of extraterrestrial with big floppy ears. It doesn't even, register to me. Then I came across the Hopkinsville encounter, and I'm like, wow, okay, this is an incident that aligns with that description. And I look further and further into it, and I'm like, wait, there's other similarities that kind of go along with that here. And so is this potentially video of whatever those Hopkinsville things are in Colorado attempting to get into a woman's house in the middle of the night and caught on Ring camera? If we know the aerial school incident happened, we know a craft landed in that incident. We know that whatever was inside got out the craft. So why wouldn't there be other scenarios where craft have landed on the ground and the whatever are inside get out and walk around the surface of the planet? I believe that happens. It has to happen. Lonnie Zamora saw the same thing, right? He saw things get out the craft, stand on the ground. So under the cover of darkness, and this is what we talked to the guest last night about, do you think under the cover of darkness, you have some of these craft landing wherever they choose to land, and they're getting out of the craft and walking around Earth? Maybe not, in a group of people, or maybe not somewhere where you're at, but are they in a random, isolated area, and they're able to just kind of walk around? I would have to imagine that would have to be true. So if you look at all these different things, this sighting right here, it just really feels like it could be related to the Hopkinsville Goblin. I would love somebody to take this further and put it to bed or put some more flame to the fire, but I think there might be something there. So with that being said, that's how we'll end the night, kind of commemorating the 70th anniversary coming up here on the 21st for the Hopkinsville Goblin. We'd like to thank our guest tonight, Cate Chassé, for coming in and being awesome for hours 1 and 2. We'd also like to thank the guy you hear right there, Ron Bumblefoot Dahl. He's the man that rocks us in and out of every show, telling us to never say never again, because, yes, the phenomena is real, which means anything and everything is possible. If you love the show tonight and what we did, definitely make sure you hit the like button. Also, throw your horns up. We appreciate you tuning in on terrestrial radio or digital platforms, when and wherever you may be watching in the world. We appreciate you tuning your frequency to Spaced Out Radio, where we do what we do best. What's that you ask? We own the night. This show is copyright SOR Media Ventures Limited, Spaced Out Radio. It has been a pleasure once again serving you as your host. I am Mr. Rob G. This is the After Hours Radio Show, and you can best believe that this is not a goodbye or farewell to all you space travelers. We'll be doing this thing same time, same place. We'll be doing it again. Make sure you're here so we can get it on, get further to the truth, move the needle. I'll see you back here next time. Take care. All right, we are clear, and yeah, I think the Dobby extraterrestrial is potentially related to the Hopkinsville Goblin. I'll tell you that until someone can show differently, whatever's in that video is not a human being. And not to say it's an alien, it could be cryptid, it could be something else, but I can tell you for sure, if you go frame by frame in that video, you will come to the conclusion that whatever it is not a human being. With that being said, it's been a pleasure talking to you guys tonight, hanging out right here on Spaced Out Radio. Let me see if I can see who Dave has in here tomorrow if the shows are posted. Let's see who's coming in tomorrow. All right, it looks like, let's see, live shows tomorrow. Oh, I don't see shows set up, so don't know who's going to be here tomorrow, but make sure you're here because Dave will be here 9 p.m. Pacific until midnight. Outside of that, I'll definitely leave you guys with wanting some retribution because that's how we end the show. With that being said, everyone, have a great rest of your night. See you next time. Take care.
Cause we want retribution. Oh yeah, we want retribution. Oh yeah, we want retribution.